Hello, this is Greg Allison with Galactic Greg's coming to you live with a splashdown of the Orion spacecraft. I'm about to share this right now with you guys, so just hang on. We are going to watch this splashdown this morning. It's going to occur in about an hour. So I'm going to do the share here. And I'm going to unmute the sound.
Happens during the separation of the forward bow cover, which covers the parachutes, and then of course the parachutes and the hardware themselves. All of it together, we take in the wings, and you can feel the wings are picking up a little bit. That wind data will give us defined information and data in order to calculate exactly the landing spot. Now with our airline out here in the Pacific Ocean, we do have friends helping us today, and I'm going to take a shot now of a ship off in the distance that has joined us for today's operation, and that is the USS Montgomery. That ship is just a few miles away, as you can see it there. The USS Montgomery is providing security today. It is what the Navy calls a littoral ship. It specializes in close-to-shore combat. It's highly maneuverable in that space. Today, though, it has a peaceful mission, and that is to provide security to this location during splashdown. So for the public safety, to prevent boats from coming in and around the area, as well as provide additional eyes to the sky in tracking Orion crew module as it comes down. You can see a little bit of a bounce there, and that's caused by the seas that we are currently experiencing, which are in the range of 4 to 5 feet. Those seas closely tracked by our NASA team with the wave management system, wave monitoring system rather. They are closely monitoring the seas for the moment that we bring the Orion capsule into the well deck. That is a highly choreographed and very dynamic operation. With the seas being what they are, when those waves come into the well deck, it can create a very dynamic environment with waves splashing back and forth inside the well deck, and teams on ropes trying to stabilize Orion to get it in just the right position here on the ship to then allow the well deck to drain out, have the Orion crew module put in place for its ride back to San Diego. That's the latest from here on the USS Portland out in the Pacific Ocean. Rob, we'll send it back to you.
Thank you very much, Daryl. We can report that all of Orion's systems are performing magnificently at this hour. At an altitude of just under 6,000 nautical miles, we did lock up on the tracking and data relay satellite system. So Orion's telemetry is now being processed through the TDRS network. This worked in concert with the Deep Space Network throughout the course of the mission. And now that we're on TDRS the rest of the way, we'll be able to have real-time data through our tracking and data relay satellite system constellation. We're just 11.5 minutes away from crew module, service module separation, the first major milestone on the road home in this final phase of Orion's 25.5-day mission. So let's take a visual and interactive look at what is coming up for Orion's journey back to Earth. Let's go back to NASA's Philip Hargrove at the moon board.
Thank you. Welcome back to the moon board. So we're going to talk a bit about the European Service Module and the Orion Crew Module. So as we know, these two systems have been working in tandem for a really long time, and that extends beyond just this Artemis 1 test flight for the past 26 days. So back in 2019 was when they were first integrated and pieced together. In 2020 was when they were fully assembled, including the solar panels and the protective frames that protected them during launch. And then they were finally attached to the launch abort system and labeled on top of SLS in October of 2021, prior to, of course, launch on November 16th, just 26 days ago. So we know that one of the primary test objectives of this mission is to make sure that this heat shield at the bottom of the crew module is able to safely bring our astronauts home from deep space. Now, for reference, when we bring astronauts home from the International Space Station, they're coming in at about 17,000 miles per hour. But today, Orion is coming in at 25,000 miles per hour. So we're coming in way hotter, way faster than we've done before. So we need some new heat shield technology. And we also need some additional hardware in order to slow us down and make that really happen. So let's talk about what that looks like. So this forward segment of the Orion crew module It's called the forward bay
He's
cover.
coming in
And
like
this section is actually
it's
designed to
over
completely be
amplified.
pulled off by 3 parachutes. So we have 3 parachutes that's going to pull that off. We have 2 drogue parachutes. They're going to come out after that to slow us down a bit. We have 3 pilot parachutes. They're going to pull our mains out. And then the stars of the show are 3 main parachutes that measure up to 116 feet in diameter each. So that gives us 11 parachutes that it takes to get us safely back home.
Good
So now that we
Lord.
know a little bit about what that hardware looks like, we can take a look at what that journey
A
actually
lot of
looks like.
parachutes.
So as we know, we had a 7-day return transit, and as we approached the Earth, the service module and the crew module are separated from one another, and the service module is going to burn up in the atmosphere above the Pacific Ocean. As that happens, the Orion crew module is going to use its reaction control thrusters to do a 180 flip and point that heat shield towards the atmosphere as we target re-entry. So a really important phase here is entry interface. This is at an altitude of about 400,000 feet, and this is where we define a lot of our entry conditions, such as the flight path angle and the velocity. And this is really important because if you come in at too shallow of an angle, you may bounce right off the atmosphere and not even re-enter. But if you come in too steeply, you're going to experience forces that are beyond the design of your spacecraft. So what we're going to do today is actually toe the line and do a nominal skip maneuver where we're actually going to bounce off once that allows us to have a steeper re-entry, and it actually increases the heating, allowing us to really test the capability of that heat shield, and we will also be minimizing the G loading, which leads to a softer ride for the mannequin and
A
in the
little
future
better,
for
but
our
I've turned it
Artemis
almost all the
astronauts.
way down.
Now, once we do that, the atmosphere is going to slow us
Okay.
down pretty significantly, but we'll still be going over 300
Okay.
miles per
Can y'all
hour.
hear it now?
And then we will slow down
I've turned
to
it that way
20
down.
miles per hour after that sequence of 11
It's
parachute
over
deployments.
amplified.
Now, once we splash down west of California, we will have these red inflatables that will make sure that no matter what orientation we hit the water at,
Can you hear what
we
he's
will
saying?
be,
Is it loud enough? 'Cause
right
I turned
side
it
up.
almost all the way
and then
down
the
on the
USS
slider bar.
Portland is going to recover the capsule and bring it back to the U.S. Naval Station in San Diego. Now, there's a really large team comprised of U.S. Navy, Air Force, NASA, contractors who worked really hard to prepare for today. So I'm super excited to see them welcome Orion home. Back to you.
Yeah, they don't have good sound mix on this channel for some reason.
Thank you very much, Philip. We are coming up on the critical stuff leading up to Orion's return to Earth and its splashdown in the Pacific, just 7 minutes away now from crew module, service module separation. That European service module has worked like a champ throughout the course of the mission. The service module, which of course housed the solar arrays and all of the other propulsive functioning for Orion throughout the course of the mission, has been monitored in the European Service Module Control Room in Noordwijk in the Netherlands, where that team of flight controllers is eagerly awaiting the completion of the service module's work just a few minutes from now, when it will pyrotechnically separate from the crew module, leaving the crew module on its own. Entry interface is scheduled just 26 minutes from now. We'll be receiving reports from Flight Director Judd Freeling and his team of flight controllers throughout Orion's descent back into the Earth's atmosphere and through all of the parachute deployment sequence events leading up to splashdown that is scheduled at 11:39 and 42 seconds a.m. Central Time, 9:39 and 42 seconds a.m. Pacific Time. One thing worth noting is once Orion splashes down in the Pacific, it will stabilize in one of 2 positions, either pointed up, which is called stable 1, or pointed down in stable 2. The crew module uprighting system, known as the CMUS, deploys a series of 5 bright orange helium-filled bags on the top of the capsule that will either flip Orion right side up or keep it right side up in its stable 1 position. Those 5 bags are packed in hard containers and installed atop the capsule inside the structural gussets between the parachutes and other equipment. They're inflated with helium gas that is stored in pressure vessels located close by the bags. Each bag has its own independent inflation system. The CMUS, or crew module uprighting system, initiates after landing and opens up a valve for helium to flow into those uprighting bags. It is considered, at least operational, that we have 4 out of those 5 bags to inflate to maintain a stable 1 configuration for Orion to enable Navy divers to approach the vehicle. One of the first things that they'll be looking for is any leakage of toxic gas or toxic fuel from the vehicle. Assuming there is no such leak and that Orion appears to be in good shape, then they'll begin the methodical process of approaching the vehicle with other personnel and other Navy assets in order to begin the securing of Orion on the ocean for its towing back into the well deck of the USS Portland. We're under 4 minutes now until the crew module and service module separate from one another. We'll be standing by for all of that. You can see in this telemetry-driven animation that Orion is currently traveling just under 17,000 miles an hour, just under 4,000 miles away from Earth, and a hefty 254,000 miles from the moon, which of course was its target, in distant retrograde orbit, flying around the moon for its outbound powered flyby at the beginning of the mission to move to a distance of some 268,000 miles away from Earth, farther than any human-rated spacecraft designed to return to Earth had ever been designed to do, surpassing the distance record established 52 years ago during the Apollo 13 mission.
Hey, Paul, thank you. And you're welcome, and thank you, Titanium. Yeah, we need some thumbs up, guys. Need help with these algorithms. Hey, shout out to Tim Dodd with Everyday
Here in
Astronaut.
Mission Control, the flight dynamics folks and the guidance, navigation, and control folks have put up a graphic, which is essentially the ground track for Orion as it will make its way across the southern Indian Ocean, passing the northwest coast of Australia en route to its ultimate trajectory that will carry it across the Pacific. It will be moving from south to north across the Pacific Ocean to the splashdown zone, almost a direct straight line towards the point of splashdown, which will be west of Baja, California.
This thing is not in Earth orbit, by the way.
Now just under 2 minutes until crew module, service module separation.
It's coming in from the moon. So it's not actually in Earth orbit. Well, no more than the moon is. I guess it kind of is, but it's not in low Earth orbit. That's why I don't have that regular track like you normally see with satellites. Good morning, Lost Art. Again, Tim Dodd, the Everyday Astronaut, just got selected to fly on SpaceX's Dear Moon mission. He's a fellow YouTuber. Now, he don't have the engineering background and things like I do, but gosh, he's got like over 1 million subscribers. He's a huge channel. And they gave him a ride. Actually, the Japanese guy who's paid, fashion designer who's paid for the mission, selected the crew. And I think there's, yeah, so that's pretty exciting, but it's also kind of scary.
Now, just 1 minute away from crew module, service module separation. We'll be standing by for confirmation of that from the mechanical systems officer here at Mission Control.
Hey, Perspective Missions, let's hope it works. There's Perspective Visions, excuse me. Yeah, Tim Dodd, you know, he's a YouTuber. He got selected. He's got a huge channel. So he makes a living. He's full-time at YouTube. I'm nowhere near
30
that.
seconds until separation. This will come at an altitude of 3,200 statute miles.
Starship's got a lot of hurdles to cover.
10
first.
seconds until set.
A lot of big engineering hurdles to cover, a lot of unknowns. I hope they iron them out before they put people on it. We've never flown anything like Starship, not even close.
We have confirmation of separation.
All right.
Orion flying on its own.
All right, that service module with all those wings is no longer attached to the capsule. The capsule.
Again, the separation occurred right on time at 11 a.m. and 11 seconds Central Time, with Orion 3,200 statute miles away from Earth. The service module, the European service module, has done its job.
There you go, Senator Stackhouse. Yeah, I watched every one of those Apollo missions as a kid. I was just enthralled by them. I watched every one of them. I wouldn't have believed it would have taken 50 years to get back. Holy smoke. So that we would have even quit going. Back when I was a kid, I wouldn't have believed it would have just quit. Guys, we're less than 30 minutes to splash
So
down.
with Orion flying on its own, we're about 18 and a half minutes away now from the point of entry interface, where Orion will be put through its paces. This is where the heat shield will begin to feel the effects of peak heating of 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit on the heat shield, and the beginning of 2 blackout periods where the plasma around the vehicle will build up such that it will block data and communications between mission control and the spacecraft itself.
We're doing something here that's never been done before with a spacecraft this size. That's the skip. They're going to try to skip like a stone off the atmosphere, like a stone across water, to get it to a landing point closer to land. This is a new technique. We've not done the spacecraft this large. Let's hope it don't skip out of the atmosphere and back into space. I was always concerned about that during Apollo days. You can lose a crew that way. Let's hope that don't happen. No, this was a orbit around the moon, BLM, kind of like Apollo 8, Apollo 9, Apollo 10. This was not a landing mission. This is a test of the
Orion
capsule.
continues to fly smoothly on, all of its systems in excellent shape.
This is a test
Less
of the
than
capsule
17 minutes until entry interface.
and a test of the rocket. We launched the Space Launch System rocket. Now we went to the moon to beat the Russians. That stuff on Suspicious Observers channel, I ain't buying a bit of it. That guy, he's something else. I don't buy hardly anything he says.
And the crew module raise burn that we thought was not going to be needed is being conducted. Just basically a fine tuning of the orientation of the angle, a 16-second firing of the thrusters, and a good burn reported, 8.12 feet per second, and a change in velocity. So the raise burn was executed. That will further fine tune Orion's path at the proper azimuth or orientation, where the heat shield is at its optimum angle, to begin the repulsion of the heat that will build up around the heat shield at the time that we begin entry interface, just about 15 and a half minutes from now.
Yeah, I know the die-hole foundation.
So the crew module, service module separation went off as planned. The raise maneuver was executed at 11:03 and 41 seconds Central Time.
I did a video.
Again, the raise maneuver was executed. Orion now flying at the proper orientation for entry interface into the Earth's atmosphere. Entry interface is scheduled at 11:20 and 14 seconds a.m. Central Time at an altitude of 400,000 feet. At that point, Orion will be traveling 24,464 miles an hour with a range to splashdown of 3,659 statute miles.
we waited because there wasn't national will to do it, D Maxie. D Maxie, I did a video on green Gregs where I'm gonna stop
Flight
this video.
controllers reporting a solid lock with the tracking.
Listen, I did a video on green Gregs because everybody wanted to know about surviving a Thomas Chan event, the floods and stuff they talk about, the earth shifts, all that stuff. So I did a video on green Gregs where I basically explained how to survive it pretty much, but I also explained in great crushing detail how they're wrong. I shot the heck out of the theories. It is impossible that what they claim has happened in the last 35 million years. I give absolute proof that that stuff did not happen, that they are dead wrong. Doug Vogt, I shot his theories to pieces. I mean, I shattered them. I shattered them completely. And I know why he did what he did. I know why he came from where he came from. He was trying to solve a problem, but he had blinders on. He missed a lot of really big stuff in his conclusions. He is wrong. Doug Vogt is not only wrong, he's way off. And so is the Dihole Foundation and the guys on Suspicious Observers channels. They're way off. They're way off. I don't know a single credible astronomer who holds any stock in anything they said. But I did it from the basis of geology. And also I used some astronomy, but mainly I always did it from the basis of geology. They're wrong. They're dead wrong, Mr. Maxey. And that's go watch my video now. I'm not going to get on that now. We're missing this video, but I just want to make that clear because I get those people coming from those channels all the time. And I shot them down. And there's no way they can stand up against what I put out there. Anyway, let me get back to the sound here. So we get back to this mission. All right. I'm not saying anything right now. Anyway. So Doug Vogt, I tore him to pieces. And what's his name that runs that channel? Ben Davidson. Yeah, Ben Davidson. Yeah, they're wrong. They're wrong. You're not going to see a Chan Thomas event or Earth crustal slip. Not in our lifetimes. It's not happened in 35 million years at least. So that's one thing you don't have to worry about. Content on my Green Greg channel, a lot of people, accusing me of fear
This is
porn.
Mission Control Houston, 12 minutes away from entry interface.
But I shoot down a lot of stuff like
Everything
that.
is going by the book so far here in Mission Control. Very quiet on the
Don't worry
loops.
about this or that.
Entry Flight Director Judd Freeling and his team of flight controllers watching carefully over their data as they oversee the arrival of Orion for its splashdown site west of Baja, California. Time to splash down 31 minutes.
Any flash steam from the heat of the panels. The panels are departing from the, well, they have to have water for steam, I guess, or some gas. They will vaporize. They're going to impact Earth too. They don't have the heat shield coming at velocity. That stuff will burn up. The capsule will come in separately. Probably won't see anything of the solar panels. Capsule has been separated from the service module. The solar panels are on the service module. Okay, Swirl Sniper never is what I say. Any flash steam from the heat of the panels. You got to assume you're talking about the solar panels, our Squirrel.
Less than 11 minutes now until entry interface.
Yeah, we're coming in quick, guys.
During the period of the two blackouts, and even after we have emerged from the second of the two blackouts, Orion, through a series of pre-programmed commands stored on board, will conduct a series of role reversals. This is very much like space shuttles conducted during their entries back to Earth, where it will roll to the left and then back to the right, banking role reversals that will bleed off excess energy, excess inertia, and speed, and control the thermal characteristics of the vehicle as it heads towards its subsonic point, where it will go under Mach 1. It will go subsonic at about 11:34 and 55 seconds a.m. Central Time, some 5 minutes before splashdown. If everything goes as planned, Orion will reach an altitude of 40,000 feet at 11:35 a.m. Central Time, just about a minute before forward bay cover chute deploy begins. The series of 11 chutes, 3 that will pull the forward bay cover off of the top of the crew module. That'll be followed by the deployment of the drogue chutes, and then the 3 large main parachutes, 3 orange and white parachutes. That'll be the moment we'll be waiting for. Orion now 28.5 minutes until splashdown.
Okay, why a Freemason? You don't have to have a Freemason any more than anybody else. No, they didn't need a Freemason. They might have, had one or two. There are, everybody's not Freemasons. I know some people who are. If you select a broad spectrum of population for doing anything, you're going to, a good chance you're liable to get one of those. So I don't know. That shouldn't have anything to do with landing on the moon. Hopefully all that's just coincidental, but I don't know. I don't know. Because watch my Swivelhead News channel and my Green Rex channel, you'll see there's some things I got suspicions about too. Yeah, like being in the 60s. Oh yeah, somebody asked about the heat shields. The Apollo capsule using an ablative heat shield. The space shuttle used tiles.
Orion is approaching the northwest coast of Australia. 27.5 minutes until splashdown. We're just 8 minutes away from the point at which Orion will dip into the Earth's atmosphere and begin what basically is a hellish entry, where temperatures around the spacecraft will raise to about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. That's half as hot as the outer surface of the sun.
Okay, so the shuttle tiles were fragile and they were difficult to place and replace. They were amazing to how they could reject heat and keep from burning up what's underneath them. I did not know.
Orion is actually traveling over the South Pacific at the moment, moving from south to north. Just 7.5 minutes until entry interface.
I do not know specifically what the heat shield on Orion is. More of a space launch system guy. I know the rocket. I don't know Orion so well. Steam on splashdown. Oh, I don't think you're gonna be that close to it. You're not gonna sit right when it hits. You can tell the space shuttle was hot. You could see the air around it, moving like it does in the desert.
And this view from a camera inside the cabin of Orion, this doesn't look like much at the moment, but it will soon when it shows the forward bay cover jettisoning and the initiation of the parachute deployment system. Entry interface less than 6.5 minutes from now.
Yeah, it'll still be hot. It'll cool down some on the final approach under chutes, because anything that's out hot is going to radiate fast. It'll still be hot. It'll still be real hot. Oh, I don't want to touch it. That ocean water will cool it down real quick, though. It's going to fast quench. This is probably a materials challenge in and of itself.
Just to recap, the crew module, the Orion crew module, separated from the European service module about 14.5 minutes ago, right on target as it was planned, and a short raise maneuver, a 16-second firing of Orion's thrusters, oriented the vehicle, raising it just a tad so that its heat shield was at the proper orientation in the direction of travel, to begin entry interface in about 5 minutes at an altitude of 400,000 feet above the Earth.
It's going 23,200.
Orion is making its way south to north across the Pacific Ocean.
Earth's gravity is accelerating. It's going faster and faster.
Currently traveling at 23,000 miles an hour.
close. 23,000 miles an hour, and she's only less than 500 miles in altitude. She's coming in fast, guys.
We're about 5 minutes away from entering the first of the two blackout periods, which will last about 4 minutes and 48 seconds.
Reason is two. Does it look like a weather balloon? No, it's a lot higher than a weather balloon. Not as big. It's not near as big as a weather balloon. Weather balloons are huge. Well, the scientific ones that go real high. There's that, and there's the rubber ones. This is a simulation. You're not seeing the real spacecraft. Is it rotating or not? I don't know. It's got attitude control on them. It's got reaction control thrusters, which ought to keep it stable in flight.
A journey that began with the power of the launch of the Space Launch System 25.5 days ago, about to reach its final minutes in the searing heat of reentry, where temperatures around Orion will build up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit.
So you're not seeing the actual
Just under
spacecraft.
4 minutes until entry interface.
You're seeing, yeah, that's hot. That's really hot. What you're seeing is a simulation. There's no camera out. Now, I really wish they'd figure out some way to use the service module to videotape this thing as they departed. That would have been cool if they'd have done that, because there are cameras on the service module. So what we're seeing is a simulation. Yeah, 5,000 degrees of melt titanium. There you go, squirrel.
Once again, at entry interface, which we will reach about 3 minutes from now, Orion will be at an altitude of 400,000 feet, traveling just under 25,000 miles an hour, with a range to splashdown of 3,659 statute miles.
Hey, squirrel. Squirrel made some good eats. I've done some squirrel sniping myself.
Within seconds after reaching entry interface, we'll begin the first of the two blackout periods that will last just under 5 minutes, about 4 minutes and 48 seconds.
The reason there's two blackout periods is it's going to skip in the atmosphere. It's going to go down, come back up, and be out of blackout, and go back in again. That's a maneuver that's not been tried before. Could lose a spacecraft over that maneuver. To me, that's like high drama. Can they really pull it off with this big spacecraft? That's chancy. That's chancy. All right, we're going 24,000 miles an hour now. This thing is bucking. Earth's gravity is accelerating. It's got nothing to slow it down until it starts putting out those shoots. This thing's going to use up to 23 shoots in the various deployments to slow this thing down. That's the most I've ever heard of.
Here's the ground track for Orion as it passes well to the west of South America. We're just 1 minute, 44 seconds away from entry interface, moving from south to north to its splashdown target west of Baja, California.
Space is not fake, Simon. Guys, listen, this thing is, yeah, they're taking a lot of risk with this particular mission, but I guess if you're going to do it, risk like that, you do it on an unmanned mission. That skip is, like I said, that's pretty high drama. And also that number of parachutes, parts, reliability is inversely proportional to parts count. What that means is the more parts, the more likely you are to fail. The more operations you have, the more likely you are to fail. Critical
Just
operations.
1 minute away from entry interface.
Critical operations are very risky in a space flight or any rocket mission or anything like that, because that's where things go wrong. Every
And this
deployment.
view from the cabin camera, looking out of the upper hatch of Orion, you can see the limb of the Earth.
Every one of those
We're going to be
deployments.
losing all of the data here shortly once we enter
Yeah, she's
into the
close.
Earth's atmosphere and begin the first of the two blackout periods.
She's coming in close now. Every one of those operations is a chance for something to go wrong. Chutes can get tangled, bust out, blow out. There are just so many things that can go wrong. Reefer cutters that open the chutes up a little bit might malfunction. There's a whole lot of parts that's got to work and got to work right for this to work. And the more parts you put in that, the less reliability of the operation. So that gives me a little bit of heartburn. They got to employ so darn many chutes to make this thing slow down. Wow. But this is heavy.
Standing
It's
by for
bigger.
entry interface and the first of the two blackout periods.
This is heavier and bigger than the Apollo capsule. So it's just going to take more to slow it down, but holy smoke, guys, that's a lot. Okay, now we got a little rotation coming in.
We are now in the entry phase.
Let's hit the atmosphere. That's
Entry interface has begun.
You can see some of the plume on through the window in a minute. Just a
Entry
little bit.
interface at 400,000 feet. Orion traveling just under 25,000 miles an hour.
Okay, all right. Titanium gave us the answer. Orion's heat shield uses tiles of
We've gone into the first blackout period. This is a visualization based on what should be happening at the moment, where the temperatures around the heat shield are reaching about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit. This is the moment of truth for Orion. We should be coming out of this first blackout period just under 4 minutes from now.
Oh yeah, I love Bugs Bunny's air brakes.
Orion should be traveling about 23,326 miles an hour at the moment. Range to splashdown, 3,125 statute miles. Again, this is a visualization of what should be happening with Orion at the moment, although we are in a blackout period that should end about 3 minutes and 15 seconds from now. Once we emerge from this first blackout period, we'll conduct the skip entry maneuver that will further dissipate heat and energy and begin a very, very dramatic reduction in the velocity of Orion as it approaches its splashdown site.
Hey, Gladys and Kravitz, how you doing? Side of capsule, well, it should be not too hot, honestly. They're hoping all that heat gets dissipated on the outside and a heat shield. $200 degrees on the backside of the heat shield. Okay.
Clocks here in mission control showing the sequence of events yet to come. The first blackout period to end about 2 minutes and 18 seconds from now. The second of the two blackout periods would begin about 6 minutes from now for about 7 minutes, followed by the jettisoning of the forward bay cover. That will begin the sequence of the deployment of the parachutes. First, a pair of drogue chutes, 3 pilot parachutes that will then pull 3 main parachutes to begin the final moments of Orion's descent back to its splashdown in the Pacific Ocean.
Lee, when you got to slow down from 25,000 miles an hour in the atmosphere, you're going to have incredible heat. It's going to be an issue with Starship. Starship is using a tile concept too. It's never been tried before. And I think they've had some problems with those tiles coming off on the pad. So we'll have to see how that's going to work. Now they got a bigger area to dissipate the heat over with that large Starship, so that might work in their advantage. The original concept they had of dissipating some oxidizer or fuel over the hull, I think they were going to have a porous hull to dissipate some of the heat, which was, I thought, an interesting idea, but they've gone away from that. And maybe because of all the mass it was going to have to carry up to do that. But they
1 minute to go until we come out of this first blackout period.
So they're planning this mission, Dear Moon. It's going to come back at 25,000.
When we emerge from this first blackout period, we'll be at an altitude of 274,000 feet, traveling just under 17,000 miles an hour with a range to splashdown of 2,000 statute miles.
So it's going to be an Earth orbit velocity once it comes out of this skip. But it's got to slow down a whole bunch more, just like the space shuttle. So it'll be slowing down like the space shuttle at that point. So it's taking the biggest heat right now, the plasma. So everybody's waiting. Is this thing going to survive? Is it going to come in?
Standing by for a reacquisition of signal.
Hello. Hey, Titanium, do you work on Orion by any chance, or you did you look that up? Titanium provides some good data in the chat here, guys, about the heat shield. I'm a space launch system rocket guy myself, so I wasn't up on what this specific heat shield was, although I should have looked into that.
And we have data from Orion. Orion out of the blackout period.
Well, it won't be 5,000 degrees when it gets down. That's nothing that hot's going to stay that hot that fast. You know, you're going to radiate.
Flight Dynamics reports that Orion is right on the money, coming right down the pike. A good view out of the cabin camera, looking out of the upper hatch of Orion.
Work. We'll skip work, guys. Looks like we'll know if she gets down close to where they're planning to splash down. Wow, that's quite a view. Imagine if you're in
we should be performing the skip entry maneuver momentarily.
Oh, I thought that was the skip. Oh, man.
Good communications established with Orion.
All right, we've got some more re-entry coming here, guys. I think he's off on that. Oh, what's that all about?
The second blackout period to begin about 2 minutes from now.
It's already began. This guy's off. He's off. Look, they're just above the Earth. You know, the Earth's 8,000 miles in diameter. They're only a couple hundred miles above the Earth at most. So it's not going to be a
Orion is at the apogee of the skip entry maneuver, beginning the second in a series of role reversals, again, banking maneuvers to bleed off excess inertia and to dissipate heat around the spacecraft. The start of the second blackout period, about 1 minute and 13 seconds from now, will come at an altitude of 270,000 feet, with Orion traveling about 16,400 miles an hour, range to splashdown less than 1,000 miles.
He's reading from a script, and there may be a delay in getting his voice to us. I don't know what's going on there, but he's reading from the script. And he may be a little slow on it. He is a human being. No, they had the feed coming from the Orion space capsule, and it went into the plasma because it's going through re-entry, and you can't
coming up on the start of the second blackout period.
So when you are got that plasma sheath around you, electromagnetic waves are not going to penetrate it, so communications will not work.
We should be in that second blackout period right now.
Yeah, we are. This announcer was like
Orion approaching a velocity of 20 times the speed of sound. If all goes as planned, we should be out of the blackout period with a solid lockup on the vehicle at 11:31 and 46 seconds a.m. Central Time.
all right, less than 10 minutes to splashdown. Yeah, that was interesting about Tower 7. That didn't make any sense. I'm not going to go into that on this channel. We'll talk about that on Swivelhead News. Maybe the Rumble version. I think it's the only place we can get away with that. I've got a video I'll be posting on Green Greg's early today, and maybe another one on the, I may post, I'm trying to figure out what to post. I got one that's a little bit potentially outside the realm of YouTube. I was going to post on Green Greg's originally.
This is Mission Control Houston, the airborne WB-57, one of the airborne assets to track Orion's return to Earth, as visual acquisition of the vehicle.
Well, show it to us. See it.
We should be coming out of this second and final blackout about 30 seconds from now.
All right, so I may have to put it on Rumble though. I got a little bit into the thin ice with this one video, so I may have to throw it on Rumble.
And helos flying off the deck of the USS Portland now have a visual acquisition of Orion as well, at an altitude of 174,000 feet, traveling 12,600 miles an hour, range to splashdown 288 statute miles.
It's getting close. Defender, they will fill it when there's real astronauts in there. We should see it hopefully in a little bit. When they put astronauts in there, we'll fill it. Right now they have mannequins in there, calling them moonikins.
This view on the deck of the USS Portland.
I don't know what kind of, this is not a full-blown aircraft carrier, guys. This is a helicopter version. It's not like what they used to get the Apollo capsules back. Smaller carrier, much smaller deck. Oh, and we got video from Orion.
And there is a view out of the cabin camera of Orion as it continues a series of role reversals. We have data back from the spacecraft.
All right, she's still got some plume around it, but not enough.
Flight Dynamics reports Orion straight and narrow on a true course toward its splashdown site.
All right, she's on course.
Forward bay covered jettisoning less than 3.5 minutes from now.
Still got some plume around it.
150,000 feet off the ocean.
They said the aircraft had a visual. It's probably just a spot. I don't know. You can see from a long ways out at sea. Something's high enough, you can spot it.
Orion now traveling at Mach 10.
Yeah, moonikins. That's what they call them. The window of the camera's got a spot on it. Look at that, right dead center. Bet it's on the window. There's some speck in it. I can get my cursor into the view. I don't want to do that. Right, she just did a roll.
Orion's speed now down to Mach 6.
Mach 6. She slowed down a lot. Mach 6 is the upper range of perhaps the XR-71.
2 minutes until forward bay covered jettisoning.
SR-71 officially would fly at Mach 3. Some people speculate it might go faster. Got some reflection in the windows.
Orion 100,000 feet now.
Baltimore, oh my God. Won't make it to Baltimore. This thing's going down the Pacific. Yeah, there's some speck there. I believe that's in the window. I don't know what's causing that. Deformity, maybe. We didn't see that speck earlier in the mission.
The spacecraft about to go subsonic.
Less than the speed of sound. I thought you'd have some drogue chutes coming out. Get it down to less. That's slow. Oh, maybe it's deployed something. I don't know. All right, you can see the sun. Hey, Jesse from Northeast Arizona just got here in time to watch this thing splash down, Brian. They've been doing local news stories on USS Portland ship that's doing the pickup. Okay, cool. It's a helicopter carrier, right? Space bug splash.
45
That's what it is.
seconds until forward bay covered jettisoning.
Get a space bug. Got it on the windshield. Something's got a little.
Orion now at 50,000 feet.
50,000 feet. I've flown balloons twice that high. I'm expecting to see some shoots. Maybe they've already got the shoots out. They got to be slowing down. I have shoots out at 100,000 feet or
So
higher.
they covered jettisoning pyros are armed.
Okay, they're about to throw some shoots out. You got to do something. We're only a little less than 4 minutes to splash down. What's up, Mike? Oh, the Baltimore.
25,000 feet.
Yeah, I figured that was a joke. There you go. I see something up in there. That's the drogues.
Drogues have been deployed.
You see them. Now, see, they're held down real small at first. And there's lines that have them, their size restrained. And they have line cutters called reefing cutters. They fire. They're guillotine style cutters. When they fire those, the chutes open up. Well, they may have opened up. Drogues aren't that big. But all these chutes, when they first deploy, are going to be small. Then they'll open them up. Then they'll jettison with more cutters and deploy the next set.
2 good drogue shoots reported by the recovery team out in the Pacific. The descent rate is right on the money. Orion's velocity now down to 282 miles an hour. Range to splash down 1.5 miles.
Wow. I better be deploying a bunch of chutes
10,000
fast.
feet now.
10,000 feet. All right, they're getting in some atmosphere. Yeah, okay. I think those chutes are actually opened up. There they go. Now they're gone. Deploy next chutes. Yep, there's the next one's coming up.
And we're on mains.
Oh, mains. Well, they had a 23.
5,000 feet.
Okay, that explained it. They had other drogues or something they deployed, or it might have been banners.
Reefing in progress.
Reefing, yeah, that's when you open them up. Oh, yeah, they're opening the reefers now. That was fast. Yeah, if you open them up full up to start with, they'll probably get ripped out. It'll blow them up.
3 good main shoots for Orion.
All right, we're in business now. I don't know, one of those shoots ain't looking good though.
We have 3 fully inflated
it's
main
good.
shoots.
It's good, it's good.
Time to splash down 90 seconds.
Wow. All right, guys, hold on. We're about to see something.
Perfect descent rate reported.
I hope this thing's in view of the aircraft carrier. They got something out there, the camera is coming down. 90 seconds. I'd like to see a visual from the outside. This thing must not be close to the aircraft carrier. Either that or they ain't Johnny on the spot with their video. $20, everybody let's suspect. Yeah. There it is. Bad focus.
And there it is. High over the Pacific, America's new ticket to ride to the moon and beyond now in view. Orion under its chutes descending towards splashdown. Orion in the perfect orientation for splashdown, just seconds away. (1,000 feet).
All right, she's going to hit it.
Good descent rate.
You know, they lost a couple of capsules after splashdown back in the gym, back in the
500 feet.
Mercury program. Well, they lost one. Gus Grissom. They blamed him for it, and they found it later. It was actually an engineering problem. That's something at the bottom of the ocean.
Splashdown. From Tranquility Base to Taurus Littrow to the tranquil waters of the Pacific, the latest chapter of NASA's journey to the moon comes to a close. Orion, back on Earth.
Yay! All right.
Unofficial splashdown time, 11:40 and 30 seconds a.m. Central Time. At a mission elapsed time of 25 days, 10 hours, 54 minutes, 50 seconds. That's unofficial. Splashing down off the coast of Baja California. The crew module uprighting system now being inflated for the bags currently being inflated.
Yeah, Paul Castle had 3 bags. This thing's at 4. Okay.
And we have a report that Orion is stable 1, upright, the way it should be.
You can see that. That's evident from the picture, the video. From the video. Hey, Brian, how you doing, buddy? Yeah, I hope the crash test dummies are okay too.
Once again, splashdown occurring at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time, west of Baja California, after a textbook entry for the Orion spacecraft, bringing its 25-and-a-half-day mission to an end.
Hey, Nippy, how you doing, buddy? Like a wave or something back there. It's where the light's reflecting off the ocean. Yeah, that's what it is. It's way must be some. Yeah, there's clouds in the sky. That's what's going on.
Orion's recovery beacon is on. We have confirmation that 4 out of the 5 crew module uprighting system bags have fully inflated, standing by for word on the 5th one. But Orion is in great shape, stable 1, just in the orientation that had been expected.
What's up, deep function 100,000 minus 1? Yeah, Jesse. Chinese got me worried. Fire that cameraman. He's trying to zoom in on it. Now he's trying to get his focus set. Yeah, he's way out there. He's trying to zoom in on the capsule. He's not doing a good job of it. Hey, North Alabama hiking, how you doing? Thank you. Got 60 in the room and only 38 thumbs up. Come on, guys, help me out a little bit here. We need some help with the Al Gore has no rhythms. Hey, Brian, I got your package.
This is Mission Control Houston. Once again, the Orion spacecraft, having completed a journey of 1.4 million miles, bobbing gently in the Pacific Ocean. 4 out of its 5 crew module uprighting system bags have been deployed. We're standing by for word on the 5th. However, irrespective of that, it is in stable 1 configuration in good shape, according to the recovery team.
What's up, LDC Galactica?
And we are now receiving word that all 5 of the crew module uprighting system bags are fully inflated. So that's exactly what we had hoped for. Orion safely bobbing up and down in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, it would be good to see Ransom out here somewhere, wouldn't it? Like old Ransom. He's a good guy. Bumped the ride off of Ransom once up in Colorado. It's going to take some while to get out to this thing and recover it. You know, they're actually still doing tests on it, see how everything is inside. That's good, North Alabama hiking. You have to go tell Randall Tucker hi. Tell him Been to the moon and back with an unmanned capsule. I know he knows. There we go. We got a recovery boat out there. Yeah, I got some stuff I need to be working on, to be honest. So recovery boat is in the spot. And how come we just run by it? Maybe they did a sniff test for gases around it. Yeah, buddy, we used to see a lot of splashdowns back in Apollo days. Mercury, Gemini, and Apollo all did the splashdown. The Dragon capsule does splashdowns. They come in a lot closer. The so they like to do them in the Gulf of Mexico. Oh my God, squirrel. I did not know that.
This is Mission Control Houston. You're looking at the Orion spacecraft. It splashed down about 6.5 minutes ago at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time. We are estimating that it splashed down around 5 nautical miles away from the USS Portland. The recovery ship and Navy boats and divers will be approaching the vehicle before long. The spacecraft is in what is called a stable 1 configuration, upright, just the way we had expected it to be. 5 perfectly inflated crew module uprighting system bags, maintaining a nice general configuration for Orion. First of the Navy helicopters now approaching the vehicle.
Well, YouTube adds a delay. There may be a delay coming through the broadcast itself.
And here in Mission Control, some of Orion's systems no longer needed are being powered down. Many of them will stay powered up for the next 2 hours while we conduct a series of test objectives to characterize the thermal conditioning of the spacecraft that will be important for future data for crewed missions to determine how long the crews can remain comfortable inside a vehicle returning from the moon. We also will be conducting tests of the beacon and SARSAT system for maintaining tracking of the spacecraft, for recovery forces that will be approaching the spacecraft in the future. And coming up in the next hour and a half will be the reactivation of an ammonia boiler system that will provide cooling in the spacecraft, as it will when crews return from their missions on board Orion.
It's a Black Hawk helicopter buzzing around. All right, what are you doing videoing through other stuff? What's going on with the cameraman? He don't know what he's doing. Said, fire that cameraman. It's a nice day to be at sea. That's how a big ship like that has a pretty gentle roll in the ocean. Smaller boats are bobbing like crazy. Yeah, I've been on both. I still like when they land at the airport. Sierra Nevada will be landing at Huntsville International Airport, actually. Huntsville International Airport is the first commercial airport cleared, as far as I know, to land a spacecraft. Sierra Nevada is going to be coming in. Well, it's got a real long field, and Sierra Nevada has a facility here in town. The Sierra Nevada spacecraft was started it's the Dream
This is
Chaser.
Mission Control Houston. Reports from the USS Portland indicate that the first of two Navy helicopters flying in the vicinity of Orion, which is about 5 nautical miles away from the ship, indicate no damage to the spacecraft and no hazardous fuel leaking from the spacecraft. Good view of the helicopters.
Okay,
and the initial Navy boats that will be approaching Orion a short time from now. Once again, the splashdown occurring at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time.
they use monomethyl hydrazine as the fuels for reaction control systems. It's a very hazardous fuel. So it's critical to make sure you don't have leakage. So that's what they want to do before the crews approach this thing, to strap harnesses to it for recovery. That is a critical thing that they got to test first. It is an aircraft carrier, Katie. It's but a small one. This is a helicopter carrier, as far as I can tell. Ship-wise, it makes for a big ship. I've been out on some pretty good sized ships in the Gulf of Mexico, launching balloons with rockets on board. The largest one was actually a barge. It was called a Pearl River barge. It was a NASA barge. And then I went out on the ship called the C. Michael Calais, and I've been out on a ship called the Mr. Offshore. Now, they used to would fly over the helicopter and bring the crews back with a helicopter with a chairlift. And then they would pick up the capsule after that. That's how they did it in Apollo days. You know, SpaceX is supposed to hold capsule aboard with a crew. Now, this is a case that they're coming in so fast, I don't even think you could use a wing. I don't know. It's interesting. Using some shuttle-like approach would be hard. 25,000 miles an hour. We're going to see if SpaceX can pull it off with the Starship, because they're planning a mission that's paid for already, a mission around the moon that's paid for and bought by a Japanese fashion designer. And I think he's on the International Space Station. This man's got a lot of money in fashion. And he's picked a crew of 8 people to fly with him, to include some musician types. And he's also flying a YouTuber. The guy who's Tim Dodd, Everyday Astronaut. Everyday Astronaut, Tim Dodd, is slated to go around the moon in the Starship. He's just a regular everyday YouTuber, but he's got a huge channel. I don't say everyday. He's got like 1,300,000 and something. He's got almost 1 million more subscribers than Rex Bear, almost. At least 900,000 more subscribers than Rex Bear. The guy's got a huge YouTube channel, and he covers SpaceX a lot. He's there at all their events, because he is a full-time YouTuber. I can't go down to all these events. So the kind of coverage he's got, he applied to fly and he was selected. So good for him. He's gone by Everyday Astronaut, and now he's actually going to become an astronaut if all this pulls off. But guys, it's going to be real risky on that first mission, the Starship around the moon. That's going to be a really risky mission. I mean, they've not even fired all 33 engines yet on that thing. There's a lot of technology that's got to be proven with that Starship. They're developing a whole lot of things. Not opening the hatch. Yeah, they sunk as you might recall, they actually sunk a Gemini capsule in the ocean by prematurely opening the hatch. And so say the hatch blew, and a lot of people thought that Gus Grissom did that because he wanted out. And the case was, they found out later that it had inadvertently blown. It was a pyrotechnic device that blew the hatch open, and it inadvertently fired. That's been figured out later. I think after they finally recovered the thing. Things sat at the bottom of the ocean for decades. When they finally pulled it up, they figured out, oh, Gus didn't do that, but he's already long dead. They blame him for that.
This is Mission Control Houston. Orion in the Pacific Ocean, having splashed down at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time, around 5 nautical miles or so from the USS Portland. The textbook entry for the vehicle. On the USS Portland at this hour, my colleague Daryl Nail from the Kennedy Space Center, who's with the Exploration Ground Systems Recovery Team. Daryl, how did it look to you? It certainly looked textbook to us here.
I'd say that's a great description, Rob. Perfectly landed here in the Pacific Ocean, and that's been confirmed by the operations manager that I just spoke to. Watching it from the deck as an observer, we have, as you can see, some broken clouds in the sky, like right around 3,000 feet. But we saw those 3 full main parachutes pop out. It was a beautiful sight, probably just about several thousand feet in the sky, and then we watched that slow descent as the Orion crew module made its way down to the Pacific Ocean. Saw the splash, and then of course the assets aboard the USS Portland here immediately started making their way towards the splashdown site, and as you see live now, they are close to being next to the capsule. Now the helicopters that you see flying there, those are MH-60s. We have 2 of them in the air, and they are right now gathering high quality, high definition imagery of the capsule in the water. There's a spotter aboard. We have photographers as well. The doors are completely open on both sides of the helicopters, and so you can see them flying a circular track around the splashdown location. They have marked, if you can see it, you can see what looks like smoke coming off the location just to the left there. That is the boats having marked location where some of the debris has come down, the debris that was part of the separation event, the part of the parachutes opening event. So you have the sabot as well as the lid from the parachutes. All of that is being tracked by the Sasquatch team.
Sasquatch.
And the Navy boats are marking that with
Those
inflatable
boats.
smoke grenades.
I think they call those inflatable boats. Sasquatches. Those
All of that hardware
those don't
the
look
team
inflatable.
wants to recover because there's valuable information and data in it.
Yeah, well, they'll pull it in close.
The helicopters will be
eventually.
out for another 20 minutes gathering imagery. You can see one of them
They gotta make sure
getting
this
very
thing's
close
safe before they pull it on board.
to the crew module. There is a GSS camera, ultra high definition, 8K, which is gathering imagery.
Yeah, I think Hoagland's showboater.
We are currently on course.
You
to
can
go
make a
right
pretty
by the
good
splashdown
living by
location.
making
So
wild
we are
claims.
right about 3.5 miles and closing.
In fact, there's more money in making
We are
wild
going
claims
to a
than there
point
is.
that's going to be 1 mile out.
Demonstrate
That's our
ski.
next waypoint. 1 mile out from the splashdown location. One of the things we're waiting for is for ammonia boil off. And that's why the Navy boats are not yet next to the capsule. We're still going to wait that out. The amount of time that that's going to take is has not been determined. They have allowed for as much as 2 hours. The ammonia on the capsule is used for cooling purposes, to keep the cabin cool for crew. Of course, there's no crew in this capsule, but for future missions, it will certainly be an important part of keeping the astronauts cool during the heat of reentry. But for now, they're going to vent off that ammonia. And as they do that, it's not quite safe to get close to the capsule with the Navy divers.
Yeah, they're venting something. You can see it, the vent.
So of course, we'll keep our eyes fixed to the location, our cameras as well. USS Portland standing by for our next waypoint, 1 mile from the splashdown site. And then once the completion of the ammonia boil off, the Navy boats
I think
will be
that's
going
Rooster
in.
tells them a boat coming in. I'm not sure. What is that?
Spectacular sight from out here, Bob. Toss it back to you.
What are we looking at? The venting or? It's hard to
Thanks,
tell.
Daryl. Back
Far
here in
out.
Mission Control, the entry Flight Director Judd Freeling on the left. To his left, Flight Director Rick Henfling. And with me on console here, probably none more important than the NASA Administrator, Bill Nelson. Senator, thank you for joining us today.
Rob, I'm overwhelmed. I'd say it's good to see you, but this is an extraordinary day.
I remember years ago when I saw you return on Columbia from your mission into space, and it all conjures up a tremendous amount of memories. Orion back on Earth, having circumnavigated the moon, having survived a critical test of its heat shield, I think you have to be hesitant to celebrate and throw confetti a little bit too early, but it certainly is
Yeah,
an
they can still
important
sink the
achievement, is it
capsule.
not?
It's historic because we are now going
Seen that
back
happen once.
into space, into deep space with a new generation.
About darn
Kennedy
time.
just stunned everybody with the Apollo generation and said that we were going to achieve what we thought was impossible. And did that in a short period of time. And many things have happened since, but we knew we were going back. But we knew we were going back to the moon just to continue to explore outward into the cosmos. And so that's why this is a defining day. It is one that marks new technology, a whole new breed of astronaut, a vision for the future that captures the DNA of particularly Americans, although we do this as an international venture. And that DNA is we are adventurers, we are explorers. We always have a frontier. And that frontier is now to continue exploring the heavens.
We had to wait a while for Artemis to finally get to the point where the Space Launch System got us underway back on November 16th. But once it did, these engineers and the other members of the team's front room, back room, they've been pretty giddy over the amount of data that they've required and how this vehicle appears to have exceeded its expectations in its performance.
The whole vehicle, the rocket, the European participation in the support module, the spacecraft itself, Orion, performing so well that they added a lot of tests. And lo and behold, we're going to be up to our ears in data, thankfully. And of course, today the two main things that had to happen was that that heat shield had to work, and it did beautifully, where they can skip off the atmosphere and bleed that speed down from 25,000 miles an hour. And then the parachutes had to work, and they did it as well.
You know, the engineering, the design of this mission, all the work that will go into the next flight when a crew is on board, right, to orbit the moon. What does this say about NASA and the international partner cooperation and the partnership that ultimately takes us not only to the moon, but beyond?
Well, it says a lot about our country because we don't do it secretively. We do it openly, and we do it with our friends, and we invite all peoples of the earth. And we are doing it also with commercial partners, because when we go into orbit on Apollo 3, we are going to rendezvous and dock with in this case, SpaceX lander, and the crew will go down to the surface. And then we have another competition going on now for another lander, so that we will have two landers.
And that's a good thing.
This is the program of
Because that
going
SpaceX
back to
lander
the
may not
moon,
work.
to learn, to live.
It's likely to put out too much thrust, dig a crater in the surface of the moon.
In order,
And because it's long and tall on top heavy, it may flip over. I'm not sure I'd want them to land on that SpaceX lander.
Gene Cernan, Jack Schmitt landed their lunar module Challenger on Taurus Littrow, the final lunar landing. It only seems fitting half a century later to the day Orion back home.
And what a fitting opportunity that I had last night to sit with Jack Schmitt at the astronaut dinner and to talk to him about those experiences. 50 years, it's a long time, but look what we have done in the meantime. The space shuttle, we built the International Space Station, we brought in commercial partners. We now go to and from regularly the International Space Station with cargo and crew. Here we go. We've got scouts going to the moon that are commercial scouts that land, that take NASA instruments and scientific instruments in preparing us for the landings of our astronauts. And so it's a new day. A new day has dawned.
New day.
Artemis
new
generation
day.
is taking us there.
It's a new day, y'all.
And Orion continues to await the arrival of the USS Portland, which shouldn't be very much longer from now, and some flight test objectives that will be taking place over the next couple of hours before we here in Houston hand the vehicle over to the Kennedy Space Center recovery team. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson, pleasure to see you today, and thank you so much for being with us.
What a day. Oh, it is my great privilege.
Yeah, I think you need to watch some of the starships fly first. Make sure they can pull it off. They run a little fast and furious with respect to safety, according to some of my contacts that are associated with that. Some of my coworkers. All righty, Desert. Bill Pogue. Like I said, the name rings a bell, but I can't put a face on it. So maybe you can tell me who he is. So yeah, that name does ring a bell. Don't forget to pack the tang. Yeah, boy, when I was a kid, I used to like to drink that tang because the astronauts drank it.
This is Mission Control Houston, 26 minutes after the return of Orion from its circumnavigation of the moon and a splashdown in the Pacific, a bullseye splashdown, just about 5 nautical miles away from the USS Portland, as had been planned. The Portland about to arrive near the spacecraft, as you heard from Daryl Nail, who at this moment is standing by on the Portland with the woman in charge of the recovery operations, Melissa Jones. Daryl?
It's hard to talk over these guys. All right, so.
Thank you, Rob. That's right. Melissa Jones, the recovery director, just came from outside the ship's control center, where she was monitoring and, of course, managing her team in the midst of this recovery. So, Melissa, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's an exciting day.
What a day it is, right? We just had splashdown, and I want to ask you, first of all, operationally.
Mr. Nail, she married somebody named Hammer, right?
And what do we have to go?
So we had a picture perfect splashdown, and at this time we're gathering data. With us being powered up, we'll get some flight test objective data on thermal conditioning, and we're doing some signal data with the Tritium beacons, making sure that we can see the beacons on the capsules and on the astronaut suits to prepare for Artemis 2. And once that is complete, the vehicle will be powered down by the Mission Control Center, and they'll hand that over officially to us here locally in the Pacific. And then we will approach the capsule and attach some lines to it and pull it into the back of the well deck.
And that's a delicate mission, right? Because you will be attaching lines and through the use of Navy boats and then also a winch inside the well deck and Navy sailors on the lines attached to it as well. It seems like a very delicate operation, especially getting to the well deck where waves will be sloshing around.
Get
And
them
we've
out,
got
guys.
already
See a
45
pot,
foot
get them out.
seas out here in the Pacific.
Right, so it is a delicate balance to try to control the capsule and the well deck with all the water that we have in there, and to softly land it on a cradle so that we can capture as much data from the heat shield as possible.
Now, as the capsule was coming down, just briefly tell me your reaction that moment that it's coming down.
So when they called capture from the helicopters, it was the most amazing feeling. It's been a long time coming. We've been working this mission for a while, and we've done a ton of training. And every time you do training with a mock-up capsule, you don't have any of that. You don't
Laughing
have
at the chat room,
parachutes,
those watching.
hear it coming back to the atmosphere, the sonic booms and all that kind of stuff. And today that actually happens. It's just amazing.
And your team, it's worth noting, has been out here a long time. From the moment of launch, you were on console, ready to support if something off-nominal happened, unusual, you were going to be able to recover that capsule wherever it was needed to recover. So you were working that and then stayed through Thanksgiving all the way to now. So
70s
it's
was a
been
good
long road.
decade.
It has been, yeah,
Especially
several of
early
us
70s.
reported launch, and then we deployed out here about 23 days before. We're out here for Thanksgiving as a team. So
Glad to
we
miss.
have been waiting for this and preparing for it for a while.
It's doing a great job so far. Good luck the rest of the way, Melissa Jones, and thank you for joining us.
Thank you very
Appreciate
much. Thanks for having me.
it. All right, Rob.
He nailed it. Daryl Dell. All right. He needs to marry a woman named Hammer, right?
Thank you, Daryl. We'll be back to
that's
you on the
60s.
USS Portland here shortly as the post-splashdown activities and the recovery operations will continue. As mentioned earlier, it will take about 2 hours from the time of splashdown until the time that Flight Director Judd Freeling and his team of entry flight controllers here will hand the vehicle over to the Exploration Ground System Recovery Team that will work over the next several hours to bring the Orion into the well deck of the USS Portland. With me, a familiar face, Bob Cabana, NASA's Associate Administrator. Bob, it's great to see you here. And with Orion back on Earth, another milestone accomplished on the road back to putting Americans on the surface of the moon. In terms of the criticality of what we've seen over the past 4 weeks, your thoughts on how this mission evolved and now the stepping stone that would put a crew on board a couple of years from now?
Oh, Rob, it's been absolutely critical to get this mission off safely. This test flight is what we need in order to prove this vehicle so that we can fly with a crew. And that's the next step, and I can't wait. You know, the launch, first off, yeah, I was on the roof of the Launch Control Center. I went up there with the administrator and deputy administrator when we came out of the T-minus 10-minute hold. And it was phenomenal. It was absolutely amazing. The rocket performed
Helicopter's coming
flawlessly.
down.
And I haven't been that happy
There's
in
a
a long
helicopter in
time
the area. Look at all
after
that.
we came down off the roof. And then to see
Drop
the
wash
mission
around
go as well as
Capsule,
it did,
helicopter
those
over.
shots that we got from the vehicle, that one from 40,000 miles away where you saw the moon with the Earth in
it's
the
real windy.
background. And then this morning, I mean, we've learned how to operate this vehicle, a few minor glitches along the way, but it is performed flawlessly, and we're learning how to work with it, operate it, and that's what this JSC team does. It is so great to be back here in mission control, to be with the ops team. I'm so proud of these guys. Amazing. But if you were watching this morning, I love the video. I don't know if it was on NASA TV or not, but the moon just kept, I mean, the Earth just kept getting bigger and bigger. It was really hauling as it came in. And the preciseness with which they were able to bring it down and seeing the chutes come out. And it's just, I'm so proud of this team, the Orion team, the entire SLS, Artemis team, the folks here at JSC. It's just been amazing. I wish Gene Cernan were still alive. You know, here we are on the 50th anniversary, and Gene was such a proponent of getting us back to the moon. I wish he were alive to have seen this mission. It would have meant a lot to him.
I don't want to date you, but I think 24 years ago, right at this moment in time, you were building a space station, I believe, with your crew on STS-88. We had so many dramatic, jaw-dropping images during the course of this flight. What for you was the most impactful moment?
Oh, I'm not sure I can pick one. Obviously, the launch. The team has worked so hard to get to the point where we successfully launched this rocket. I think the successful burns along the way to actually get that go for the TLI burn and do it and be on our way to the moon again. Absolutely awesome. I think the pictures that we saw, but the splashdown, how can you not? I mean, this was really emotional, going around and congratulating folks for what we did. So it's hard to pick just one. I think what has meant the most to me, more than just watching the mission, more than the mission highlights, is being with the teams at the Kennedy Space Center, at the Marshall Space Flight Center, here at the Johnson Space Center, and just being able to go up and talk to them and thank them for all their hard work that got us to where we are. I think it means a lot to me.
Bob, final question. The next step, Artemis 2, putting a crew on a vehicle to orbit the moon. It's going to be a complicated mission. It's a long road. It seems like a long time from now, but based on what we've just witnessed and based on what we believe will be the ultimate data flow out of this mission, doesn't seem that far away, does it?
It is not that far away. It's going to mean a lot when we get the crew assigned, and we see them in training. We get that human face to this. I've seen the flight hardware at KSC. The Orion 2 spacecraft for Artemis 2 is there. It's in build. We got to get Artemis 1 back and transfer some of the black boxes across to make sure that they get checked out and everything works. You know, the rockets being built, we are on the way. And I think when you put a human face to that, when you actually see that, hey, we're sending humans to the moon again, and we're going to get this 1-year cadence eventually, where we're doing this on an annual basis. This is our future, and it's different from how we went during Apollo. We're going in a sustainable way. We're paving the way to go onto Mars, not just the moon and Mars, but to establish a presence in our solar system beyond our home planet, to explore, to have those technologies in space, to continue to learn and improve things here on planet Earth.
Bob Cabana, NASA's Associate Administrator. Thanks so much for being with us, Bob.
Rob, it is always a pleasure to share a mic with the voice of NASA. I think a lot of you, buddy, you know that. We've worked together a long time. You keep doing a great job.
Thank you very much, Bob. Bob Cabana, NASA's Associate Administrator, with us here in Mission Control.
Oh, you knew. Where are they really from? What are they really? Yeah, Bill Poe. Yeah, he was on the Skylab. They call it Skylab 4. There's the third crew to Skylab. It's called the launch of Skylab 1. That was the last flight of a Saturn V launched the Skylab space station. Skylab space station was huge. It had more internal, had so much internal volume. Be nice. Hopefully, you know, Starship, we might get stuff like that again.
This is Mission Control Houston. About 37 minutes since Orion splashed down in the Pacific. On the deck of the USS Portland, as he has been throughout the course of the morning, Darrell Nail, my colleague from the Kennedy Space Center. Darrell, how are things going out there? It looks like you're about to approach the vehicle.
We're very close to that moment, Rob, here on the USS Portland. We're just about 100 miles off the coast of Baja, Mexico. The operation, as you've heard and been commentating, it is going pretty smoothly at this point. But we are in a pre-planned waiting period as we wait for the ammonia that is inside the capsule. It is used for cooling. This is boiling off at this moment into the atmosphere. And until that's complete, the boats will be on hold. Now, the Navy divers right now at this moment are outside of the 120-yard radius around the capsule. That was part of the plan. They will close within just a few feet to start detecting if there are any hazardous gases coming from the capsule. But that will only happen once our recovery director, Melissa Jones, has given them the go to close in. The ship, meanwhile, the USS Portland, is on its way to close within 2,000 yards of the capsule. As you can see it floating there, the bags fully inflated that are used to upright it. Bright orange in color at the top of the capsule. The ship will then come alongside the capsule, and once the Navy divers have gone in and made sure that the capsule is safe to approach, they will begin taking imagery, photographs, both on the top side of the water, and then also they have Navy divers prepared to go underneath the capsule and take pictures of the heat shield. The all-important component of this capsule, which is the primary objective in terms of the test and this flight test, is to make sure that that heat shield works and works well. So fresh from space, they want to make sure that they have images of it preserved as it is now before the operation begins, where they pull it into the well deck of the USS Portland. That will involve the attachment of ropes, as well as a winch line that then connects to the USS Portland. The well deck of the USS Portland will be flooded to about 6 feet, and those Navy boats will attach their lines and then pull alongside the Navy vessel, connect to a winch line, and then carefully tow it into the well deck. Again, we are currently awaiting the completion of ammonia boil-off from the capsule. They've allowed for up to 2 hours, but it could take a shorter period of time. And once you see those Navy boats closing in, then you'll know that that ammonia boil-off is complete. Of course, we'll let you know when that happens. Live on the deck of the USS Portland, Robertson, back to you.
Thank you, Daryl. Daryl Nail on the USS Portland out in the Pacific, west of Baja, California. Back here in Mission Control as the flight controllers watch over the initial phase of the recovery operations. We're joined by the director of the Johnson Space Center, Vanessa Weich. Vanessa, great Sunday to have you here with us on Console.
Fabulous Sunday. What a great day. You know, it's amazing to me, everything that has been accomplished throughout this entire mission. But being here with the team and seeing and witnessing this splashdown together, amazing, wonderful. I really can't describe how I feel.
You know, we were talking just a moment ago, it never ceases to amaze me how these missions are designed. The execution is one thing, but the design of the mission here by the flight control team, and just down the hall, by the way, there are humans orbiting the Earth in the International Space Station. So it's almost like a 2-for-1 here.
It is. I mean, you know, to me this week, and well, for the past 26 days, being able to come into the control center and know that we had teams controlling the International Space Station with our crew members on board. And we've had, as you know, successfully crews living off of this planet for over 22 years. But then in another control center where we're monitoring and making sure that the maneuvers, everything that had to happen on the Orion spacecraft, that was being tracked, followed, and, you know, data, anything that needed to be sent up was just done so perfectly and professionally. This team has trained for years. First, you got to plan the mission, as you know, then you have to execute the mission. And so the years of planning, the years of getting ready, the preparations really paid off.
You know, after a team wins the World Series like the Astros did, you can celebrate for about 24 hours before you have to worry about spring training that's coming up. There's almost never a moment to breathe. Artemis 2, not too far down the pike.
Yes, absolutely. So for us, you know, this is great. We've accomplished Orion 1, this test flight, being able to test out the heat shields, those parachutes, as you saw, brought the spacecraft down. But now we have to get it ready for our crews to be on board. So all of the systems that we need to integrate for our environmental controls, those are things that will be new as we go forward for Artemis 2. And then it's the outfitting of the cabin, all the things, simple things you think about. They're going to be going for 10 days. So we got to make sure that we have the food, we have the clothing, all of the things that they're going to need for their next trip. But there's a lot of additional training. There's a lot of additional planning that has to happen in order for us to be ready for Artemis 2.
Thank you so much, Vanessa Weich, the director of the Johnson Space Center. What a busy time this has been.
Oh, but I also, Rob, though, I want to say thank you and congratulations to all of the employees, our entire workforce here at NASA Johnson Space Center. But I also want to thank our European partners. I want to thank our industry partners. It took thousands of people to make this possible. And now the recovery that's being done by the Navy, just want to say major thank you to the brave individuals that are out and they're going to be bringing the Orion spacecraft into the Portland. And then she'll be back going to Florida, and my friends in Florida are ready to receive her. We're super excited and just want to say thank you to everyone that has made this possible.
Thank you so much, Vanessa White, Director of the Johnson Space Center. Time to celebrate just a little bit before we catch our breath and press on.
Yes, time to celebrate. Then we got to get ready for Artemis too.
Vanessa White, thank you so much.
See, Artemis 2 is set for May of 2024. I thought it was May of 2023, so that's kind of a disappointment. I thought it was May of 2023. Maybe they have delayed it. I don't know why it would have to be May of 2024. Beanie cap float. Oh, you seeing my hat? Is that all you see? Elon Musk brain chip. So all right, there's a closer view of it. Yeah, you can see she looks a little burned up from the re-entry. Got marks on it. The side, not a pristine white, but that's what you expect after the temperature she's seen. Now, the actual metal on the spacecraft shouldn't have got that hot. It's designed to fly in such a way that
Back here in Mission Control, it has now been 46 minutes since the splashdown of the Orion spacecraft to complete its 25-and-a-half-day mission. Flight controllers here in Houston are reporting that the vehicle looks great in the initial visual inspections being made by the helicopter teams, as you heard Daryl Neal reference just a short time ago. We just heard from Vanessa White, the Johnson Space Center director. Now let's turn our attention to the East Coast, to the Kennedy Space Center, where the director of the Kennedy Space Center, Janet Petro, is standing by with us. Janet, good afternoon, and what a moment as your exploration ground systems folks are hard at work out in the Pacific.
Absolutely. Thanks, Rob. It's been a really, really exciting morning, and can't wait for our teams to get to work out there on the West Coast.
You know, we heard a short time ago from Melissa Jones from the deck of the USS Portland. How complicated has been the development of this recovery operation that your team is executing as we speak?
Well, it's pretty complicated, but our teams make it look easy. I will start out by saying, or giving, I should say, a big shout out to really Vanessa and her flight ops team and the whole Orion team to deliver an amazing mission, bringing us down through splashdown. But now it's over to Melissa and her team, and she's done an incredible amount of work to get to this point. What we do at NASA, it really is all about collaborations, and the collaborations that we've had with the Department of Defense in particular over the past many, many years, their hard work and their dedication as they went through a great deal of planning, hardware development and processes, and a lot of practicing to get to this point and make it look easy. That capsule sitting out there on the ocean, it looks very similar to the Apollo capsule, but it's actually about 30% larger. And so the complexity of recovering that larger vehicle is a little bit more. But Melissa and her team have been practicing. Their latest underway recovery test they completed. It was the 9th one, and they completed that last November 21st of last year, 2021. So they're ready. Watching these teams precisely perform these recovery operations is amazing. And so I think we're going to have a really, really great day. I'm going to be traveling to San Diego to watch the ship come in port in a couple of days. So I look forward to seeing that capsule on board the well-decked ship.
Janet, there's a lot of work to be done before Artemis 2, but the first milestone here will be getting the vehicle back to your center in Florida for a detailed inspection and detailed analysis. What's the basic timeline for all of that work?
Yeah, so Splashdown today is really the beginning of the journey back to KSC. So as I mentioned, I'll be there in San Diego when the ship comes into port in a couple of days. And then Orion will then be loaded onto a truck and transported back to the Kennedy Space Center. And that's going to take a couple of days because of road-related conditions. You know, the Orion will still have some residual hazardous waste on it. And of course, planning the roadways as it gets trucked back to the Kennedy Space Center takes some careful navigation. So by the end of this month, the end of December, we expect to have Orion coming back onto our center. We think that's going to be a really great Christmas present for us here at the Kennedy Space Center. And it'll go right into our multi-payload processing facility for its post-flight assessment. And that's where the remaining residual hazardous fluids will be removed from it. And then just after the new year, the teams will be opening up the hatch of the Orion, and then once that's complete, I think Robbie called it the moment of truth. They'll remove that heat shield and begin a really detailed inspection and assessment of how that heat shield performed during its reentry and recovery operation. So we're really looking forward. I know the whole team's really looking forward to see how that assessment comes out. And then after that, it's Orion's journey is not done. It'll be making its way up to the Glenn Research Center, where it will be doing some acoustic and further environmental testing up at that center. So journey isn't over. It's just kind of making its way here on the terrestrial path back. So thanks.
Janet Petro, the director of the Kennedy Space Center, joining us here today. Congratulations, Janet, and thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Rob. It's a great capstone to our 60th diamond anniversary to have splashdown, successful splashdown. So take care. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you again, Janet Petro, the director of the Kennedy Space Center, joining us today. Orion safely upright and stable one, as the Navy and Exploration Ground Systems team continue to approach the vehicle in the first of a multi-hour choreography that will bring the vehicle into the well deck of the USS Portland. On the deck of the USS Portland right now is Daryl Mail, who has NASA astronaut Shannon Walker with him once again, post-splashdown this time. Daryl, how are things going out there?
Rob, we've got a front row seat to this operation. As you can see behind me, Shannon Walker, as you mentioned, NASA astronaut, joining me with this incredible view as we watch that capsule floating in the Pacific Ocean, just 100 miles off of Baja, Mexico. We have an MH-60 Nighthawk helicopter encircling it, and the Navy boats in the water. First of all, Shannon, how about this view?
This is amazing view and so exciting to see the Orion capsule back on Earth.
That is a human-rated capsule that went around the moon and returned and is now in the Pacific Ocean. As an astronaut, what kind of thoughts do you have seeing a moment like this?
It's actually really emotional to see something like this, knowing that the next time we're going to have people on that capsule, or the second Orion capsule. It's pretty amazing that we're going to be able to go back to the moon soon.
Incredible indeed. And as we look at, let's paint the picture for the audience as we look out at this operation. Currently in a moment where we are pausing for ammonia boil-off. That's the cooling that the Orion crew module uses to keep the astronauts cool inside the cabin as they wait to be taken out of the capsule. There's none in this one, but this would be a period in which that would happen. You can see the Navy boats. They are roughly outside of 120 yards from the capsule. They have equipment that will sniff out any hazardous gases near the Orion. And so they are holding in position until that ammonia boil-off happens. And then also in your view, you can see the MH-60 circling back around. It is leaning so the photographers inside and a high-resolution camera mounted on the side can get imagery of the capsule fresh from space. My question to you, Shannon, is as we watch this continue to wait and for the Navy divers to get closer, thoughts of Artemis 2 now come to mind. You've heard folks have been talking about it. Rob has been discussing it with many of the leadership around NASA. People want to know, Well, who are the astronauts going to be for astronaut too?
Yeah,
So, any idea?
that is the question. No, I have no idea. Once we get this capsule back, we'll look it over and we'll be able to determine when Artemis 2 will actually be able to launch. And once we know that launch date, we'll figure out the right time to name the crew based on the training flow.
So there's actually a period of training in which you have to do a set amount of time to get ready for that.
Right.
But really predicated on Artemis 2 and that launch date.
Absolutely. We don't want to have the crew just spinning their wheels if Artemis 2 is going to be a long way out, but I don't think it will be. So I would say sometime in the next 6 months, maybe. It's just a guess. Don't hold me to it. We might be naming the crew.
All right, very good. Shannon Walker, NASA astronaut. Thanks for joining us today. One quick update and note. The recovery team was looking at the possibility of recovering the parachutes as well as the forward bay cover, but that is not going to happen this time. They did mark their locations, but they did slip below the surface of the ocean, and so no recovery of the parachutes or the forward bay cover. That's it from right here on the USS Portland. Bob, I'll send it back to you.
Daryl Neal on the deck of the USS Portland with NASA astronaut Shannon Walker. It's been almost an hour since Orion splashed down. Everything with the entry and splashdown went by the book. If you weren't with us for the final minutes of Orion's descent toward the Pacific Ocean, we have a replay after the deployment of the three main chutes, which were pulled out in sequential fashion after pilot parachutes and drogue chutes were deployed. The main chutes came out. They reefed in perfect fashion, slowly descending towards the splashdown that was marked at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time, at a point about 5 nautical miles or so from the USS Portland, west of Baja California. Orion entered the Earth's atmosphere traveling 25 times the speed of sound. It decelerated to a splashdown velocity of just under 100 miles an hour. It was a very gentle splashdown for Orion. All of its entry milestones were performed in perfect fashion. 2 blackout periods in which the plasma around Orion built up, preventing data and communications with the spacecraft as a natural function of the heat of reentry, which was about 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, twice as much as re-entering space shuttles and other crewed vehicles have experienced. But although some analysis must be performed now, and there's the splashdown itself as it occurred, analysis, as you'll hear in a moment from our next guest, must be conducted to make sure that everything went as had been prescribed on the heat shield particularly. And there's a live view of Orion as the Navy boats with the Navy divers and other recovery personnel begin to approach the spacecraft. With us here in Mission Control is Michelle Zahner, the Orion Mission Planning Lead from the Vehicle Integration Office. Michelle, thank you for joining us today. And I guess the natural and the big question is, unbelievable that all this just ticked off in trip hammer fashion the way it was designed.
Yeah, so it was an incredible mission. So we accomplished all of our major mission objectives. The vehicle performed every bit as well as we hoped, and even better in a lot of ways. So as an example, the solar rays generated more power throughout the flight than we expected. So this is the furthest any human-rated spacecraft has ever gone, and that required a lot of complex analysis and mission planning and trajectory planning ahead of the mission, and to see it all come together and have such a successful test mission was amazing.
I'd hate to hit the water 100 miles an hour.
It was a test flight, of course. There was a lot of risk involved, an elevated risk because there was no crew on board, and you could take, shouldn't say liberties, but you could expand the envelope of what you needed to do in order to acquire the data that you were looking for in order to set the stage for the next mission when a crew will be on board. From a vehicle standpoint, sitting in these mission management teams, sitting with your engineers on a day-to-day basis, how much data did you acquire, and How long do you think it's going to take to pour over this so you write the textbook of Artemis 1?
Yeah, we acquired a ton of data during the mission. So one of the first things that we'll do post-mission is take several months to go back through that data, really dissect it and understand the vehicle performance. You know, we did a lot of testing and analysis prior to the mission, but nothing really compares to seeing the vehicle perform in a harsh space environment. So that's certainly going to be our first focus after the mission is looking at all that data. And as you mentioned, you know, we pushed the vehicle further than we probably would with the crew on board, but through that we learned a lot. We learned that the vehicle is more robust than we thought in many areas, and so taking that information and expanding our operational envelope will help as we go forward to more complex missions in the future.
And in the Orion Vehicle Integration Office, for yourself and your colleagues, it's almost like wearing two hats. You have to go back and pour over the data from this flight, but now you got to prepare a vehicle that will sustain a crew, including an environmental control system, a life support system for the crew itself. How are you all going to juggle all of this work over the next couple of years?
Yeah, there is a lot of work that goes on in parallel. So as I mentioned, I think the post-flight review is going to be the top priority for the first few months. But at the same time, the crew module and the European service module for Artemis 2 is already at Kennedy Space Center. It's already being put through the paces and testing. So that vehicle is already there. After splashdown here, there are some avionics that we're going to take off of the Artemis 1 crew module, refurbish, and then install an Artemis 2 crew module. And then, as you mentioned, we have the new environmental control life support systems and a lot of other crew interfaces like crew displays. And all of that is in the process of being integrated and tested. So we celebrate Artemis 1 today, but tomorrow we get back to work and we start focusing heavily on Artemis 2 and making sure we have a successful first crewed mission.
You have to delay those vacation plans just a little bit. Michelle Zahner from the Orion Vehicle Integration Office, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, guys. Getting interesting here. They're going to try to bring this thing. I want to stay on to bring this thing on board the ship. I step away for a minute. I hope they don't switch programs and go to music. That really messes me up. Maybe throwing your lunch if it's in the raft.
Back here in Mission Control, about an hour and 2 minutes now since the splashdown of Orion. Just about 5 nautical miles away from the USS Portland, which is approaching the vehicle, as well as Navy recovery teams. Back on the USS Portland, Daryl Nail from the Kennedy Space Center with the Exploration Ground Systems folks is with Captain John Ryan, the commanding officer of the vessel. Daryl?
Thanks, Rob, and Captain John Ryan here. Thanks for making the time to come and join us from off the bridge. Absolutely. Appreciate you being here. So far, this has been pretty amazing in terms of the completion of the mission. From your vantage point, how did you see it? What are you seeing now?
Right now we have the orbital is in the water. Right now we're kind of in that 2 to 3 hour window where NASA and the Navy's EOD teams are conducting some tests. We're getting imagery and data for NASA, which will help support the future astronaut missions. And from perspective, honestly, I think it's one of the coolest things I've ever gotten to do. I've been in the Navy 23 years. I've done a lot of missions and I've been all over the world, but to be part of this NASA mission today is probably one of the coolest things I've ever been part of.
That's impressive, and that says a lot. As we look just behind us, Captain Ryan, and we see the operation currently in a moment of pause where they're waiting for the capsule to vent off the rest of its ammonia using its cooling system. We can see the Navy boats in the water. Currently, you've got the ship on a course heading going around this operation. What has been your instruction to your team commanding the ship?
So I just basically wanted to keep the ship within visual distance of the orbital and our teams in case they need anything. It also is providing, let's be honest, a lot of people are out here and they're super excited about this. Let's provide visual opportunities for people to get photos and get their digital part of being the history of this event. So a lot of time and effort and training and kind of get their moment. And we're out here getting ready to, we'll be landing the helicopter soon and, just being a part of it.
Certainly watching the sailors as it splashed down, they seem to really enjoy the completion of the splashdown part of the mission. You see they're all smiles, cameras, and so that was good. You provided us with a perfect view of the rest of the operation. I want to talk a little bit about your ship, the USS Portland, and why it was chosen for this particular mission, and what strengths does it bring to this operation?
So the USS Portland is one of the newest of the San Antonio class LPDs. So
An LPD,
landing platform docking ship. So this type of ship, normally known as an amphibious ship, in most of our missions, we'd be working with the Marine Corps to embark their equipment and deliver them to foreign shores. But the capabilities of our ship can also be used, obviously, for missions like this. Right, have an enormous flight deck with an aviation department that we can land multiple various types of aircraft. We can put, obviously, a number of small boats in the water. And then probably the special feature, which NASA really likes, is we have a well deck, which we can later flood, and we will bring the orbital into the well deck to transport it back to San Diego.
those are some great assets that you bring to the operation. And I also know on the next one, Artemis 2, there'll be a critical component. The medical facilities that you have on board here, you could take care of somebody with any number of injuries. And in fact, I believe even have surgery if you need it.
Yes, we have a tremendous medical capability on board. Hopefully not that it will be needed, but we do have a operating room, medical staff, and a lot of ability to take care of personnel should anything not work out as designed.
This ship was just recently in Los Angeles at Fleet Week earlier this year.
Yes.
Got to show it off to the public, and that's a matter of pride, I imagine, to the team.
Absolutely. The ship has had a very busy year. The ship returned from an overseas deployment much earlier in the year, supported Los Angeles Fleet Week and also the Rim of the Pacific exercise this summer, which had about 20 nations participating. So it's been a very busy year for the ship, and I think this is really just kind of the cherry on top where you get to do an unusual mission and support history.
Tell me about the footprint that NASA takes up on this boat. I'm sure I haven't seen all of it. I've seen a lot of it, the well deck, certainly the equipment that we have running on the various decks outside and inside. It's pretty sizable.
Yes, this is a very good sized ship. We have plenty of room. NASA has about 150 engineers and various entities on board, which we have plenty of room for. This ship would normally deploy with upwards of 600 Marines on board. So NASA's footprint really isn't too bad. It's well within our capabilities.
Well, there's been plenty of room, and you've been a tremendous host to us. And so thank you, Captain John Ryan, for having us and for successfully bringing us to this part, this moment of the operation.
It's been an honor to support the NASA engineers and to be out there and be part of this.
Thank you very much. Captain John Ryan, commanding officer of the USS Portland. And as we push out our view here, the Pacific Ocean, just 100 miles off the Baja Peninsula, you can see Orion now as a silhouette, still floating, the Orion Command Module with its CMUS bags. Those are the uprighting bags, fully deployed. It's in a stable condition. And to the right of that, you see the first Navy boat. That's a rigid hull boat. That one is the one that's going to get a little closer and provide a stabilizing tow line. Once it's been determined that the Navy boats can get a little closer. And just to the right of that, you will see the remaining 4 boats. 2 of those boats are inflatable boats with Navy sailors aboard. Those Navy sailors will put hands on the capsule and secure it with ropes. They will then maneuver to bring that capsule to the rear of the USS Portland. The Portland will then throw out a more than 1,000-foot rope and then several 400-foot ropes. That long rope will then attach to the capsule connect up, and then begin pulling the Orion in. Now, this is a very complex operation. Think about this. That capsule does not have a keel, so it's a smooth bottom, 16.5 feet in diameter. So when it is pulled, it doesn't track in the water very well. So what has to happen is there are ropes attached to 4 points around the capsule that help stabilize it. Navy sailors, a team on each of the 4 ropes, and then on a 5th rope will be the winch. That winch will apply enough pressure required, enough pulling force to bring that capsule into the well deck of the ship. At the moment, as we've been telling you, we are currently standing by awaiting ammonia boil-off. The coolant that's provided on the Orion capsule keeps the astronauts, once they eventually go into the capsule and go on missions to the moon. Currently, no astronauts in this capsule, but we've got to vent off the ammonia nonetheless. The allotted time for that is 2 hours. And so we are just 1 hour and 10 minutes into that waiting period. And once it's clear, you'll see those Navy boats get closer, but currently we are still standing by, waiting for the completion of ammonia boil. That's it. Live from the deck of USS Portland. Of course, we'll have more interviews for you as we go along. But for now, send it back to Rob Navius in Houston.
Thank you, Daryl. Looks like a beautiful day out there west of Baja, California. A lot of smiles here in Mission Control in Houston. We're about an hour and 11 minutes since the splashdown of Orion to wrap up its 25.5-day mission. Integral into the flight of Orion was the performance of the European service module that functioned perfectly to take Orion out of Earth orbit on its way to the moon, and did everything it was asked to do throughout the course of the flight. And joining us is Philippe Delou, who's the Orion European Service Module Program Manager from the European Space Agency. Philippe, congratulations. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, and good afternoon.
Philippe, that service module went through its paces and was spot on every time it was asked to conduct a burn. Everything that it was planned to do was executed perfectly. Your thoughts on this mission?
Oh, well, I have to say that I'm the happiest man in the world at the moment with the successful performance of the service module. She did what she was supposed to do, and even better. So it's a wonderful mission. I couldn't have dreamt more.
Now, the service module for the next flight, which a crew will be on board, is at the Kennedy Space Center undergoing testing, and it's going to be a while for all of that hardware to come together, but you all are off and running on preparations for the next mission in a couple of years.
That's correct, yes. Well, we have already assembled the service module back in Europe and delivered it. Now it's being integrated with the crew module in Kennedy. And that's, if I don't mistake, should happen in the next summer.
The work that the service module did, obviously invaluable. You can't conduct this mission without the work of the European service module. What kind of process was involved in getting to the point where the design of this mission, the requirements that the service module was asked to perform, and then ultimately conducted over the last 4 weeks? How did this evolution of this mission unfold for you and your team?
Well, this is a story that started quite a long time ago, in 2011, when there was a decision that the crew module would be built by Europe. So there's been a long process into setting up the requirements, proposing a design, discussing the design, also involving NASA, and agreeing on what should be the final design, take up the challenges which are associated with the design, eventually built the hardware, integrated, and then preparing for the mission. So this has been a long way and a lot of work by the European Space Agency and the European industry.
And you know, down the hall where the International Space Station is controlled out of, ESA is a frequent flyer to the International Space Station. And the international partnership, of which ESA is such a critical contributor, is so valuable to human spaceflight now and in the years ahead. Talk a little bit about that.
That's clear. I mean, going to explore deep space is a challenge, is a big challenge. And we need all the excellence over the world in order to tackle that challenge and make it sustainable. Going there once, yes, is doable, but in order to go there on a regular basis and for sustainable exploration of what is out there, first on the moon, then Mars, and then beyond, this will require all the forces and skills of the engineer around the world, and that's with ESA and NASA. We have started the process with the Artemis program.
Philippe Delou, a little moment perhaps to sample some bubbly to celebrate this moment, but a lot of hard work ahead, and thank you so much for being with us today.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure.
Philippe Delou, the European Service Module Program Manager, joining us here in Mission Control. Thank you, Philippe. This is Mission Control Houston, and all of the action now is focused on the USS Portland, west of Baja, California. My colleague Daryl Nail is there. Daryl?
No, thank you. Yep, we're here on the deck of the USS Portland, just 100 miles off the coast of Baja, Mexico, and I'm joined by Valerie Vinchulo. She is the General Dynamics Applied Physical Sciences Senior Engineer. Thanks for being here.
Yes, of course.
So Valerie has some fresh information and analysis that she's been doing as it pertains to this operation, bringing the Orion command module into the well deck of the USS Portland. And so she has been looking at the wave heights with a system that you use, and tell me, you've just now analyzed the sea heights. What kind of sea heights are we dealing with, and what does that mean for the recovery of the Orion capsule out there in the ocean right now?
Yes, so we have two wave monitoring systems, two radars on board the ship. So we're monitoring the waves, measuring the Doppler velocity of the waves in the vicinity of the ship. So from that, we're able to get the significant wave height and where the direction of the waves are coming from along with the period. So right now we're seeing about 4 to 5 feet of waves at about 13 seconds from north-northwest. So with that information, we're able to provide a recovery heading for the ship that'll optimize, minimizing the motion in the well back. So we're really trying to minimize that sloshing and bore wave in the well back.
And that's a key point right there, Valerie. Of course, as you could tell at home, but we're on the ship deck leaning back and forth to those 4 to 5 foot waves that we're dealing with out there in the ocean right now. So imagine Orion bobbing out there in the ocean, coming into a well deck where those waves come into the well deck. So what has been your recommendation to the team about how to deal with these waves as they bring that capsule close?
Right, so right now we're recommending a recovery course of 320 to kind of mitigate that motion. So we're kind of looking at the roll of the ship to minimize that sloshing wave. And the course of 320 is looking like the best for that recovery. That will give us a little bit of a
waves. Look at the little ships out there, like the boats.
It's something that we think we
They're
can deal
bobbing
with.
a lot. The waves are big compared to
We're
them.
looking forward to recovery.
You get on
This is important because
you get on the big ship, it's a very slow roll because the waves are smaller than the
once
ship.
those waves come in, and then the ship, as it's moving about, creates a big wave pool inside.
Yeah.
That's not good for a spacecraft if you're trying to stabilize.
No, you don't. You really want to minimize those motions to the best of our ability. And in doing so, we're just looking at everything out there, all the waves, what we're dealing with. And we have hydrodynamic ship models of the ship and of the well deck. So we're running through all of our models live, taking the live radar data, and just trying to provide the best information available here.
And so when we have that information, what is your role after you continue to monitor?
Yes, we're constantly monitoring and running the system. We're always recording data to analyze later. It's constantly doing that. And we'll provide little tweaks and updates, as we get closer. But once they've started flooding, we're really on that course. So we'll just keep things monitoring what's going on.
Those two radars on the ship, where are they located and what frequency are they using?
So they're located on the O5, and it's an X-band radar. And over here on the O4, we have two, and that gives us, putting them both together, gives us full 360 degrees, which is what you want. You want to be able to see all the waves around the ship. And they're actually an X-band radar that's been vertically polarized, so we can see the Doppler velocity as it's coming in to calculate that wave height and the swells and the wind waves in the direction they're coming in.
That's high-tech stuff. I mean, it's, get Doppler radar. Many people may be familiar with how that helps with weather, telling our audience and weather people where the weather is, where the storm clouds are, but it literally can map out in 3 dimensions the waves around the ship.
Yes, yeah. So we're looking, a lot of X-band radars, they're looking for targets, right? Another ship, avoidance, but we've polarized our radars to try to look at the waves and just what other people might consider noise is what we want to capture.
That's interesting. It's just the opposite
Yeah.
that it's typically used for.
Yeah.
Well, Valerie, last question I want to ask you. You've been on the ship since we departed San Diego on Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's been a long journey to get to this point, this weather alternate spot where the seas are much lower. They're now 12 feet or so off of San Diego, so this is certainly something
Yeah.
you probably appreciate.
Yes, yes.
But let me ask you about that operation and looking out there and seeing that space capsule in the water. What was it like that for you watching?
Oh my gosh, it was amazing. It's something I will probably remember the rest of my life. Hearing that sonic boom and then seeing the shoots. Oh my gosh, it's incredible.
Valerie Chulo, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank you for having me here.
All right, Rob, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Daryl. The work continues out in the Pacific, where you have the Orion spacecraft with all 5 of its uprighting system bags fully inflated, following its splashdown 1 hour, 21 minutes ago at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time to wrap up a mission of 1.4 million miles that spanned 25 and a half days, a mission that saw the vehicle launch from the Kennedy Space Center atop the Space Launch System, the maiden flight of the world's most powerful rocket. An hour and a half after launch, Orion was sent out of Earth orbit in its translunar injection to begin a voyage out to what is called a distant retrograde orbit, a highly elliptical racetrack-shaped orbit that enabled Orion to be put through its paces for almost a month, gathering all the data that it needed and that the Orion program and mission managers had hoped for and more. All of the engineering data that will set the tone and answer a lot of the questions that will pave the way for the Artemis 2 mission, in which a crew will be placed on board the vehicle in a couple of years for a orbital mission around the moon, again in a highly elliptical orbit, a mission that would be about 10 days in length or so. That crew yet to be named, but the pace will pick up after the first of the year in fairly dramatic fashion as the work continues to prepare the Space Launch System, the next Space Launch System rocket, and the Artemis 2 Orion vehicle to support a crew during its mission around the moon and back to Earth. In the meantime, a number of test objectives are still underway for the vehicle, most notably characterizing the thermal environment of the Orion spacecraft itself. Orion endured temperatures of up to 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit during its high-speed entry out of lunar orbit and back into the Earth's atmosphere, where it slammed into the atmosphere at 25 times the speed of sound, and then underwent a skip entry maneuver, basically skipping into the atmosphere, then dipping back out of the atmosphere again, and then back into the atmosphere to bleed off excess energy. An important maneuver that was designed and executed to perfection to bleed off excess inertia and to gain data on how we can better bring in multiple splashdown sites if required in the Pacific for future crewed missions. All of the chutes were deployed in good shape. The three main chutes deployed as planned. They reefed to their full extent, and Orion gently splashed down. After entering the Earth's atmosphere at 25 times the speed of sound, it splashed down at a meager velocity of just 19 miles an hour. Very gentle splashdown velocity had a crew been on board. And here's a replay of the final seconds for Orion as it descended below a deck of clouds at about 1,700 feet of scattered clouds. That was the final deck. The Spaceflight Meteorology Group had forecast very benign conditions for Orion. It did play out exactly that way as Orion touched down at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time. And there was splashdown. The chutes were cut automatically. The 5 crew module uprighting system inflatable bags inflated with helium gas as planned. And Orion is gently bobbing out with the Navy divers very, very close to the spacecraft. It's going to take several hours for them to hook up the equipment that they need to haul the vehicle into the well deck of the USS Portland and to bring it back to port.
We're getting close to it now. Guess we're gonna go in there and start attaching stuff. Haul her back on. So you can see the little boats are bobbing pretty well. That's a pretty good chop, 4-foot crest waves. On the big boat, you don't even see it. I mean, you can't even tell it's choppy. They're rolling a little bit, but they're rolling with the aggregate of all those waves, not individual waves. So a big boat feels like dry land compared to being on. You know how it is when you go out to sea, you get back on land, your legs feel wobbly. That's the way you feel going from a small boat to a big boat like that. That big boat is so much more stable than land. You feel just like you're landing on land once you've been out to sea on a bobby boat. I've had that happen to me, guys. It's really funny. But those big boats are a lot more stable. I'm actually trying to do some work while I'm doing this stuff here. So hang on, guys. I'm not looking at the chat room immediately. I am actually trying to get ready to run some worms today and get the order sheets made up. And there's only I'm really down on sales this week. In fact, I only got one. One small order is all I got right now. So hang on, guys. I'll check back in the room in a second. I may have to make a quick little run here.
Back here in Mission Control, the entry team of flight controllers watching the data of the post-splashdown test objectives, in which data is being acquired on the thermal characteristics of Orion. There'll be a restart of the ammonia boiler system to gain data on long range and extra cooling for the vehicle that will be in the offing when a crew gets on board. We'll be talking more about the crew aspect of what lies ahead a couple of years from now, a short time from now. But now it is time to go back to what is a very busy place on the USS Portland and my colleague, Daryl Nail. Daryl?
Thanks, Rob. Yep, I'm here with Cody Kelly, who is the National Affairs Manager in the Search and Rescue Office at NASA. In terms of your job, we had good visual today of the capsule coming down. We clearly have the visual right now. We can see it in the water. We know where it is. But that might not always be the case. The capsule may be beyond our visual sight, as well as in Artemis 2, the astronauts. Tell me about what your role is and how you help find out where they are in a situation like that.
Yes, sir. My name is again Mike Cody Kelly. I work in our SAR mission office. Basically, we work with all of our federal and international partners to ensure that our spacecraft are interoperable with the search and rescue satellite-aided tracking system, or the SARSAT system. So today for Artemis 1, we tested out the vehicle tri-band beacon, which was using swept tones for the helicopters that are flying around behind us to be able to locate that spacecraft in kind of what we call the terminal area, which is within about 1 nautical mile where you can get visuals, as well as the 406 megahertz beacons that were on the capsule, as well as what the astronauts are going to wear in Artemis 2. We were using what's called the SAR Intelligent Terminal, or the SAINT application, which is a system that ties into our ground station at the Goddard Space Flight Center to pull in all of the data from these beacons, and so we can see them anywhere in the world. And that's incredibly important, especially when we have crewed missions where if we had some kind of emergency abort or some kind of landing, we have to be able to get data to our DoD partners extremely fast, even if they're landing internationally. And this is something that we do for all of our human spaceflight programs. The Artemis really has a kind of special place in my heart because all this effort started way back in 2016 with URT-5. So we actually demonstrated some of our advanced technologies on URT-5 and slowly was able to be integrated with the landing and recovery team to provide them that key data on the day of landing and if there was any kind of emergency. The astronauts are going to wear what's called the Angel beacons, which are the advanced next generation emergency locator beacons that are located on their life preserver equipment. And that's going to be able to track an astronaut if they had to get out of the capsule, if there was an ammonia leak or some kind of emergency, as well as tying that into what the vehicle telemetry is saying to be able to give a good SAR picture to these guys that are flying helicopters looking for survivors or being able to go rescue astronauts.
And so let's talk a little bit about that further. The astronauts will be wearing GPS, essentially they're GPS locators, right?
Exactly, yes, sir.
They're beacons. And then, of course, the crew module itself has a tri-beacon.
Yes, sir.
So how do you delineate between those two?
That's really the power of our ground station and all these web applications. They're two different legacy beacons. You have a first generation SARSAT beacon, which is what you have on a standard boat. Even the ship itself has a first generation beacon. And then we have what is called a second generation beacon, which is an advanced waveform that's specifically for the astronauts themselves. In our application, we're able to actually identify each of those beacon IDs and tie them to a specific crew member so that when they turn it on, we know exactly whose beacon that is and exactly where it's at. And the power behind that is with these emerging technologies, we're able to do this even if we have bad GPS connection or really anywhere in the world. And this is the kind of stuff that you can have as you go to a vendor and buy it for your boat. If you're out hiking, we're using those technologies for civilians for astronaut use and kind of vetting it out here, out in the open ocean, knowing that astronauts are really one of our prime customers.
So you ran a test today, right? As this operation was unfolding, the crew module was sending out its beacon, its tri-beacon, but then you also had those Angel beacons for the astronauts. They were what? You put them on the boats,
yeah,
right?
we put them on the ribs or the rigid hulls, inflatable boats that are out there tending the capsule, as well as on the fantail of the ship. What we're doing is we're looking to make sure the air crews could delineate between these various beacons if the crew members ever had to get out, as well as looking at the performance of the vehicle tri-band beacon after it's spent almost 2 weeks in space. So we're looking at, not only today's technology, but tomorrow's technology to kind of serve Artemis, emerging partners, and really the folks who are going to be in harm's way on a daily basis.
Your test was part of the operation today, and how did it perform?
It went phenomenally. I can't give more kudos to the crew of the Portland, First Air Force Stat 3, setting that all up with the Navy, the Air Force, as well as some of our national partners in the U.S. SARSAT program that made this all happen. So it was really a team effort, and it went flawlessly, just like this mission. So I couldn't be more happy.
And you could clearly identify the capsule and the two Angel beacons. I mean, it was clear as day.
It's clear as day. And we've been working on this application for over 2 years with this mission in mind, and it executed flawlessly. And the coders and developers at Goddard Space Flight Center did a phenomenal job being able to get this ready on time, on mission, and on location.
Cody Kelly, Manager of National Affairs, Search and Rescue Office at NASA. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Bob, we'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Daryl. Great job out there, by the way, throughout the course of the day. A great view of Orion as it sits passively in the fairly calm waters of the Pacific, west of Baja, California. With me here, sitting very calmly, veteran astronaut Randy Bresnik. Randy, Thanks for joining us today. You have been an integral part of the preparation of not only this mission, but all of the astronaut office activities associated with requirements that will ultimately lead to putting a crew on the next vehicle that will orbit the moon in 2 years. What did you see today that A, thrilled you, and B, was most important for you to see as a result of all the work that has gone in to make this mission possible?
That is a great question, Rob, and thanks for letting me come join you guys this morning. Certainly watching the team throughout the past 26 days was certainly the culmination of seeing that, walking in here and see this team be able to see the fruits of their labors. Seeing that we have a launch platform that was nearly flawless, practically flawless, getting our Orion uphill, and then having our service module, give us power and the flight control and the burns that all went off so well with so small residuals, we hardly had to do any trimming. And it was then great to see all the cameras that we put on that vehicle to bring everybody along on the mission. And, put selfie as a word that we use now in spaceflight, and Artemis 1 getting the selfies while we were up there. And then certainly everyone holding their breath as we did the burns to get into the distant retrograde orbit and then get out of the distant retrograde orbit and then be able to make the trim burns to be able to get right, hit entry interface as accurately as we did here. See the service module separate, which is another big milestone, and then see the last few minutes of flight with Orion flying on its own for the very first time. And then see how well it controlled itself and how the forward big cover came off on time, the drogues came out, slowed it down, mains came out, and we landed, 2.5 miles from the, point bullseye. And we had expected maybe, 5.5 miles. So it was awesome to see all of that. And that whole collection is what gives us confidence for the next time. All of these things that were individually areas of concern have now been proven in flight.
We've talked often during the course of the broadcast today about the fact that this is the 50th anniversary of Apollo 17's landing on the moon. Gene Cernan, Jack Schmitt, past his prologue, as they say. And now, from an astronaut office perspective, as you look down the road over the next 2 years, a lot of work to do, but certainly a leg up on what we think will be a launch in the 2024 timeframe.
Absolutely. The post-flight data reduction and everything else will be amazing to see in the next few weeks and months. But starting next week, we're right into Artemis 2 continuing process. So we got Artemis 2 crew module and service module sitting there at KSC right now, going through its final, their final assembly. And then we have to do the verification, validation, test out, and make sure everything's working. And things like systems like the Eclipse system, which we didn't have on this. And so the first time that we're flying with that system will be when crew are on board. And so that'll be a really important, thorough checkout here on the deck. Certainly, in the next quarter, ideally assigning the crew to it so that we can start building their spacesuits, getting them involved in training, and getting them ready to go in that 2-year mark. And hopefully we will either meet or beat that 2-year mark. And so that will be exciting to see if we can move that fast and continue the momentum that we got from this flight.
And an interesting flight design for Artemis 2, where another highly elliptical orbit around the moon. This is not like your father's Apollo 8, where we simply orbited almost at an equatorial nature, but we're going to be chasing the interim cryogenic propulsion stage as well.
Yeah, certainly. When you look at how bold Apollo was, we had never been to the moon. We didn't know we could do it. We planned on having Apollo 7, and we flew that crew module in low Earth orbit. And then Apollo 8, we launched it around the moon, and it stunned the world and proved to ourselves, that we could do this. But guess what? We're doing that in one mission on Artemis 2. We're doing Apollo 7 and 8 combined. So that is a bold statement and audacious goal for NASA to set. And like you said, the highly elliptical orbit that we launch up in here on Earth, so we can launch out, get into a 24-hour orbit and check out that environmental and life control system, such that we know that we can breathe. We know that the cooling works. We know that all the systems work. Scrub the CO2, take out the humidity, try the exercise device. So we know that by the time we end that period, and we do the translunar injection burn, we know that we're good to go for the next 9 days to be able to get around the moon and come on back. And all of that, just buying down risk, proving out the systems, so that when we go to Artemis 3, we combined not only, Apollo 9, which is the first flight of the LEM in low Earth orbit, Apollo 10, which took the LEM to lunar orbit and flew down near to the surface and came back, and Apollo 11 landing. We do all those three of those missions in one. And that is very exciting, very bold, and it is got to be exciting to anybody that's in a space program, is interested in the space program, or the young people out there who are the first future space explorers who will be on those later Artemis missions.
I have a question, Randy. Space is no stranger to you. You've spent quite a bit of time, shuttle flight, long duration mission on the International Space Station. But if there was a singular image from the last 25 and a half days that sticks with you, that drove it home, that we were going well beyond the Earth, what would that be?
It would certainly be the missions where we were on the far part, where we were 268,000 miles away from Earth. And we saw Earthrise over the moon, and thinking that the next time we take those pictures, that could be with somebody behind the back of the camera, not the vehicle taking it himself.
It's going to be an interesting couple of years, a very exciting couple of years. And Randy Bresnik, thanks for joining us today. Appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. And congratulations to our Artemis team everywhere all over the world. They deserve a very well deserved day off after this mission, but certainly looking forward to the next 2 years where we are able to take
We don't get a day off.
And, as we say, wash, rinse, repeat.
Copy that. Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it.
Wish.
Randy Bresnik with us here in Mission Control. It's been about an hour and 40 minutes since Orion splashed down. We're continuing out in the Pacific to secure the spacecraft and ultimately get it into the well deck of the USS Portland. As the team here in Mission Control works through the post-splashdown procedures before they hand the vehicle over to the Exploration Ground Systems recovery team on the USS Portland. Again, let's go back out west of here to west of Baja, California, where Daryl Nail is standing by on the deck of the USS Portland. Daryl?
It's simply beautiful out here, Rob, and we've got a perfect view, a front row seat to the Orion splashdown. I want to give you a quick update on the recovery operations. Recovery Director Melissa Jones has decided to go the full 2-hour waiting period for ammonia boil-off, and so that's going to put us at 11:40 a.m. Pacific time for the boats to then close in and get next to the spacecraft and begin sniffing it for any hazardous gases. You can see it just right off the port side of the USS Portland, still in the water. The Navy boats off to the left, they're standing by for that moment, which is in just about 18 minutes from now. They're going to go in and start that procedure. Both helicopters, though, are back on the flight deck as well. Those assets have completed their part of the job. I want to bring in now Jeremy Vanderkam. This is a special individual. Well, of course, everybody's special, but when it comes to the heat shield, this is something you know well. You are the Deputy Thermal Protection System Manager for the Orion program. Your team designed the heat shield, tested it, and have been basically there from the start of this. And so I want to ask you, this, of course, has been the primary objective of this test flight, testing the very component, the heat shield, that you and your team helped design. And so I want to ask you, first of all, how much do you just want to get out there and take a look at that heat shield, which is right behind you?
I can't wait. Yeah, I tried to convince lots of people that in the small boats didn't happen, but that's okay. We'll be doing our inspections once we get hard down in the well deck later this afternoon, and we'll get a good look at how we did.
Do you have any early information from the imagery that has been taken thus far?
Not a lot so far. We've been, looking at the capsule as it floats in the water through our binoculars and whatnot. Everything looks great, exactly as we expected it so far. But yeah, we'll get the details going here in a few hours.
So tell me about this particular heat shield. It is different and also similar in ways to previous heat shields. Tell me about it. How does it work?
Yeah, so this is the largest ablative heat shield that humans have ever devised for a spacecraft device to take humans farther away from our home planet than ever. So what we did is we combined some older technology. We actually resurrected a material system from the Apollo program called AvCoat. and we modified the way that it's applied to our vehicle for Orion in a more programmatically modern way, if you will. So the way that we do it now is I have a sample here, a test sample. So the brown material in the middle here is our aft material, and we make it in blocks, and we bond those blocks to the base of the Orion spacecraft onto the heat shield there.
It looks like wood.
Yeah, it does look like wood. It's not. I can assure you. Yeah, and then there are seams between those blocks, which is the red element that you see here. And in this test sample, we've actually applied heat in our test facilities at Ames Research Center in Mountain View, California, to simulate the heat of reentry, to char the surface just as it is on the base of the spacecraft right now. And then what we'll do is when we get the spacecraft back in, we'll go and look at how that heat shield works compared to our test results. And that'll allow us to certify then the heat shield for Artemis 2.
You've done a lot of testing on this heat shield, but you're telling me that no matter how much you test it, you can't duplicate what it just went through.
That's correct. Yeah, what I'm holding here is about the largest size thing that we can test. And obviously the 5-meter Orion heat shield is much larger, so we have a lot of extrapolation for scale that we have to do. And similarly, our test facilities can't reach the combination of heat flux, pressure, shear stresses, et cetera, that an actual entering spacecraft does. So we're always having to wait for that flight test to get the final certification that our system is good to go.
So I'll trade you props here. The actual Orion, and tell me from you said you've used binoculars, you've sighted the spacecraft. One side of it, I guess, gets a little more charged than the other. What have you seen?
Yeah, so far it's actually looking like we expected.
That's exactly what you
The word side is the hot side of the vehicle. And so we can see that, for example, the thermal control tape that we put on the exterior of the vehicle, all that shininess that we saw pre-launch is basically gone on the windward side as expected. And then on the leeward side where the windows are, I'm seeing a fair amount of tape remaining as expected. So our heating predictions, how that the heat contours over the vehicle were predicted to be, looks like that's how they were. So, so far so good.
Jeremy Vanderkamp, thank you so much for joining us. He is the Deputy Thermal Protection System Manager for the Orion program. And I know you're anxious to get that capsule in this well deck so you can get your eyes on it.
Yep, I'm ready.
Good luck the rest of the way, Jeremy.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll send it back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Daryl. Back here in Mission Control. We're about 32 minutes or so away from the point at which the entry team of flight controllers plan to hand the vehicle over to the Exploration Ground Systems recovery team that Daryl has been involved with on the USS Portland. That will come after the completion of detailed flight test objectives, the last of which will be the restart of an ammonia boiler system to provide additional cooling for the vehicle. This is a test to see what kind of additional cooling might be required once a crewed mission returns from the moon to maintain the most comfortable level of cooling for a crew on board that is returning from the moon for an extended period of time, particularly if they wind up splashing down a further distance away from the recovery ship than Orion did today. Everything went perfectly during Orion's high-speed entry back into the Earth's atmosphere, and its splashdown and all of the post-splashdown activities that have occurred so far, as we will be continuing our coverage until Judd Freeling, the entry flight director, hands back the vehicle to the Exploration Ground Systems folks out in the Pacific.
All right, guys. So they're being quiet for a minute. earlier. I was wanting to talk so much and they just kept yapping. I don't think there's a whole lot to say at the moment. Let me check the chat room. That's what you guys are pining about here. Let's see. Hang on a minute. I got to get it my way over there.
And again, back here in Mission Control, you're looking at Flight Director Judd Freeling in the middle of your screen. To his left, Flight Director Rick Henfling, as the entry team of flight controllers heading into the home stretch of their work here before they hand the vehicle back to the Exploration Ground Systems folks on the deck of the USS Portland, where, again, my colleague Daryl Nail is standing by with yet another guest.
Yeah, no bots. That's pretty miraculous, right?
Thank you, Rob. And as you can see behind us, still right here on the port side, we have Orion floating, stable, and the Navy boats there tending the ship. And we should be sending them in just about 10 minutes from now. We will begin sniffing for any hazardous gases that will be coming off, and then they'll secure Orion. In the meantime, we have Dr. Emily Spring, Sasquatch team lead for NASA. And if you thought that your name was unique, well, it is. It surprised me when I was on the ship walking by your door and I saw Sasquatch team. I thought, what might that be? And then I found out, and it's fascinating. Emily, tell me, first of all, what is the Sasquatch team? What do you do?
So Sasquatch is in charge of designating waypoints for the ship and for the small boats, as well as creating footprints, which is where we get our name Sasquatch. So Sasquatch generates big footprints, and those footprints contain the debris field as it's coming down. And that's used to help position the helos in the air and keep people safe and outside of that debris field as we are, having a spacecraft splash down.
Absolutely, and it's really incredible. You were explaining to me, how you calculate these footprints. And just for background, as the Orion comes down and separates out the forward bay cover, which reveals the parachutes, and then there are certain items around that, a sabot, a lid, various pieces are coming out of it, and your team is able to model exactly or approximately where those pieces fall in the water so that assets can get close. How do you figure that out?
So a lot of the data came out of CPAS drop test. That's Capsule Parachute Assembly System drop test. Those are done out in Yuma. And that was used to prove the Orion parachute system. From that, we were able to derive a lot of the aerodynamic properties of some of the debris objects, which I've got some here.
Sure do.
So these are drogue, lid, and sabot. They're not flight versions, but they are, representative size. These would be, on top and bottom of the parachute as it's mortar deployed like a cannon out from Orion. We've also got a smaller piece of debris here, and it's a pilot sabot. So essentially, at the drop test, we were able to, really hammer down what those different aerodynamic properties are using rate of descent and then where those things touch down in Yuma. And we're able to use that in our model here for actual Artemis 1 operations.
And I understand that there are 26 pieces of debris, right, that came out from, the separation of the forward bay cover and the parachutes, and you model every single one of those 26 pieces?
They're modeled as a group. So, we've got a group of lids, that come off at drogue parachute deployment, right? So we've got, a couple lids that come off, a couple sabots. And so we said, the lids and sabots, they'll be in this footprint as that footprint descends and then goes into the ocean.
And as it lands into the ocean, I guess the shape that it kind of takes is that Sasquatch, a giant foot.
That's right, that's a footprint.
With all that debris coming down, I mean, the different aerodynamic properties, this is going to be
Bigfoot
different
had to get
from,
in this
say, the
somewhere,
larger one, which is going to be different from the parachute. What kind of modeling goes in to be able to tell where that parachute's going to float? Because the parachute takes many forms as it's falling.
Right. So we're taking in, we're using that CPAS data, but we're also taking in data of weather conditions. So we've got, weather people on board the USS Portland with us, and we're talking with spaceflight meteorology back in Mission Control in Houston, and we're getting information that we're using to take into account, because once things are on parachutes, just like you said, they're drifting. But with that, we were able to predict the CM splashdown location within a nautical mile. So
that's impressive.
Yeah, we're really, really pleased. It went beautifully.
Well, nice job to your team and to you. That right there is impressive. Now, I was just going to ask you, how about the rest of the debris field? Were you able to determine with what level of accuracy the rest of it came down?
So right now, none of those other pieces have GPS information on them. We're hoping to get some information about that later. We'll see what the ship's capabilities are and what NASA's able to get from that. But that's something that's still
screen. Sasquatch team lead for NASA. Thank you to you and your team for doing such a great job with us and joining us today.
It's been great. Thank you.
All right. Rob?
Thanks, Daryl. We're coming up on the 2-hour mark since Orion splashdown on target in the Pacific, west of Baja, California. The end to Orion's 25.5-day mission culminated a mission that was punctuated by a tremendous number of highlights, and we can take a look back at some of those highlights now. That began with the launch of the Space Launch System from Launch Pad 39B at the Kennedy Space Center at 1:47 a.m. Eastern Time on November 16th. The Space Launch System lifted off, conducted a roll program to place itself on the proper azimuth and the proper trajectory to enter a orbit of the Earth. It would spend the Orion spacecraft itself with its associated European service module and the attached interim cryogenic propulsion stage would spend one orbit in low Earth orbit. There's the separation of the core stage. The vehicle conducted a translunar injection burn that enabled Orion to break out of low Earth orbit and begin its trajectory toward the moon, and the elliptical orbit, the highly elliptical orbit called the distant retrograde orbit, that provided the time that was required for Orion to acquire data on the space environment and the time required for engineers to test all of its systems and collect as much data as possible in this first test flight that would precede placing a crew on board an Orion spacecraft 2 years from now. This dramatic video of the Earth-Moon transit that took place showed and punctuated the fact that we were pressing away from our home planet to a distance of some 268,000 miles away from Earth, further than any human-rated spacecraft had ever traveled, for a spacecraft designed to return humans to Earth, eclipsing the mark set by the Apollo 13 vehicle back in 1970. The distant retrograde departure burn that began the trip home for Orion this past Monday. You can see the effect of that engine firing on the solar arrays on Orion's service module. That, in effect, was what amounted to a deorbit burn of sorts that placed Orion on a trajectory to return to Earth, which it did today with a splashdown 1 hour and 58 minutes ago. As we circled back around the moon,
That's a beautiful picture.
For the return powered flyby, we saw a dramatic close-up of the moon and the crescent of the Earth in the distance, using the moon's gravitational field as a slingshot effect to set our sights on the Earth and the trajectory required to splash down in the Pacific, which we did, as Orion gently waits for the arrival of the recovery team that will begin the process of hauling the spacecraft into the well deck of the USS Portland. And this was the view from the cabin camera looking upward out of the forward bay, basically the top of Orion, as the first chutes were deployed. These were the forward bay covered parachutes that in turn pulled out drogue chutes and then the three main parachutes to dramatically slow down Orion's descent back to Earth. And as you see here, under three fully reefed chutes, Orion finally splashed down at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time, to wrap up its mission of 1.4 million miles.
Dang, you got a missile. Oh my goodness.
This is Mission Control Houston. Flight controllers here reporting back to Flight Director Judd Freeling that they had begun the power down of Orion's systems with everything looking good and data having been acquired. So the post-splashdown test objectives are nearing an end. The vehicle is being powered down and we should be a short time away from the point at which Flight Director Judd Freeling hands over the vehicle to the Exploration Ground Systems folks out in the Pacific.
Oh yeah, that's the bad thing about. What's worse, Jesse? What's coming across the southern border or what's coming from California? Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm Californians. Yeah, I'm going to try to turn Arizona blue. Seem to be having some effect on that. So much for the days of gold water, right?
We'll be heading back shortly to the USS Portland, but as you can see, the first contingent of the Navy boats are approaching the Orion spacecraft, which is in great shape following its high-speed entry and splashdown that occurred just over 2 hours ago. We're just minutes away from handing over the vehicle to the Exploration Ground Systems folks.
I wonder if I'm covering the video up. That don't look good. I'm trying to work on another file. You're supposed to be able to see what I got highlighted. May not be working out so well. Teach them homeless how to fish. There you go. I got a lot of work to do here. There it is. So what happens if I open that file? Does it cover the video? It's not supposed to. It is not supposed to do that. Let me check this out. So if that happens again. But don't. I hope it don't. Oh man. Not do what I'm going to do. Oh, it did. Holy smoke. What a delay, though. All right. Shrink this. Shrink this down and see what happens. Oh my God, I can't get to my file because of a stupid overlay from Zoom.
This is Mission Control Houston. Entry Flight Director Judd Freeling, who also was the Ascent Flight Director for Orion's launch aboard the Space Launch System 25 and a half days ago, is addressing his team of flight controllers here in Mission Control.
All right, we're gonna blow this back up. I was trying to do some work on this computer, and it should have just shown the screen, but it didn't do it.
With that, Judd Freeling has handed over the Orion vehicle. A round of applause. The vehicle has now been handed over to the Exploration Ground Systems folks out in the Pacific, where my colleague Daryl Nail is standing by with members of the Navy helicopter team that saw Orion up close and personal about 2 hours ago. Daryl?
That's right, Robin. They were the first to see it. They picked up the heat signature as it came above the horizon, and they were the first to have a close-up look of the Orion crew module as it was in the water. I have with me, as you mentioned, 3 Navy pilots with the HSC-23 squadron in the Navy. They were flying the MH-60s, the Nighthawk helicopters. I've got Jacob Mailer, Jackson Cotney, and Gabe Weigel. Thank you all for being here, and it's great to have you.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you. Well, tell me, first of all, this operation, for those who were watching earlier on, we saw your helicopters going around the area almost immediately after splashdown. Tell me about how you were able to do that and then what unfolded for your mission.
Yeah, so basically we have a FLIR camera mounted on the front of the helicopter and about 7 NASA personnel in the back. So while we're riding in the back, they're giving us azimuth and elevation angles to take a look at. And basically right away, even earlier than we expected, we picked up the capsule coming in. And so us 3 were the backup aircraft pilots, but we did hear it come over the radio that they had it captured right away. They have basically a FLIR that uses infrared, so it's seeing how hot that capsule is coming down. They caught it a whole way down, which was exactly what we needed for that engineering data.
Easy to lock in on, right? At 5,000 degrees Fahrenheit, the bottom of the heat shield, that FLIR was just almost instantaneous as soon as that thing came above the horizon. Then you began capturing imagery, and we watched as the helicopters circled, and sometimes they're doing some pretty nice banks around the Orion crew module. What was that about, Jackson? Why did they take that path around?
Yeah, so the second part of the mission was to get a hazard analysis of the capsule, and then just engineering level fidelity data, like imagery from some of the photographers on board. And then we had another helicopter up that was testing out the new Angel beacon that the crews are going to wear eventually when the capsule does come down. So that all deals with our primary mission set of search and rescue, which is what we're hoping to do in Artemis 2, is to actually pull the astronauts from the capsule via the hoist.
Right. And so you guys were also using data from the Sasquatch team. We just, interviewed them and heard about the great work that they did in predicting where that debris field would be coming down, 26 different pieces as the crew module was, getting its parachutes out and everything. Using that data, how accurate was it for you, and how did it help you fly around the area?
So there's actually one of the NASA personnel in the back had a tablet which had the debris field on top of it. And as time got time goes on, that debris field will get a little smaller and smaller. And it's really helped give us headings and guidances on where to turn and where to get the aircraft to avoid any of that debris field coming down, hitting us in the, hitting us in the head on the helicopter. So
Yeah, right. And successful. You guys were looked great out there at sea, surrounding the capsule, flying. In fact, at sometimes very closely. We saw you hover. I don't know what the feet was, but it looked, pretty close to the ocean surface.
Probably about 50 feet above, just so that the photographers could get good data. And then we were kept safe by Emily and her team. The whole Sasquatch team helped us with a footprint so that we knew where we could fly, so that we'd be safe.
Where does this rank for you guys in terms of mission? I mean, you're young fellas, so you don't have your call signs yet, which eventually you'll get that. But being a part of this mission, it's very different, right? The civilian nature, where most DoD missions are not of that nature. So where does it rank in terms of you? What was it like?
It's absolutely amazing, and certainly a career highlight for us up until this point. Yeah, we were still just in the backup aircraft, but just being able to just support these awesome pilots that were out there with us. We had Therapist and Ripper and Stapler and James. All of them did such a great job. So we're just really excited that this is both exciting for us and kind of plants that seed to be exciting for everyone else watching, and excited for the next mission with astronauts in it. So.
And that'll be the next great part, right? So as Navy pilots, you'll be able to hover over top of the next capsule that comes down, and it's going to have astronauts in it. Briefly describe what you imagine that would be like.
That's got to be an unreal experience. I hope I'm still around to be able to be a part of that. That's got to be one of the greatest feelings ever, pulling someone out of a capsule that's just been to the moon and back. Unimaginable feeling, I gotta say.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. We appreciate you. Jacob Naylor, Jackson Cotney, and Gabe Weigelt with the HS-23 Squadron. Great job today. Thank you for joining us, and we appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having us.
So much. Appreciate it. All right, and here on the USS Portland, the mission continues. The operation to recover the Orion command module, which you see is still out there in the Pacific. We're awaiting the Navy boats to get a little closer to begin their operations and sniffing out hazardous gases and making sure that they are able to connect up to that capsule and tow it back inside the USS Portland, our Navy ship on scene here. That's going to do it for us, for the Exploration Ground Systems, the Department of Defense, and NASA. We want to send it back to you, Rob, in Houston, Texas.
Thank you, Daryl, and magnificent job out there on the USS Portland, and the work is just beginning out there, as you heard. Here in Mission Control, the work is over for the entry team of flight controllers who have handed the vehicle over to the Exploration Ground Systems folks out in the Pacific, with the power down of Orion having been completed. Entry Flight Director Judd Freeling has released his team, and they will be making their way out of Mission Control with Orion's handover now complete. Splashdown occurring at 11:40 a.m. Central Time, 9:40 a.m. Pacific Time. The team is posing for a team picture before they are released for the day. Upcoming, you can follow, if you wish, all of the remaining recovery work, including the Orion being brought into the well deck of the USS Portland on the YouTube channel that you see there, www.youtube.com/KSC Newsroom. Kennedy Space Center Exploration Ground Systems folks now in charge of the operations to bring Orion back into the well deck, to get it back on shore, and then transport it back to the Kennedy Space Center for post-flight analysis. That'll wrap up our coverage of Orion's return to Earth. And let's point you to our post-splashdown news conference that's coming up at 2:30 p.m. Central Time, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time on NASA television, as a variety of folks discuss entry, splashdown, and recovery, and take a look back at the 25-and-a-half-day mission of Orion, its first flight, next stop of crew on board 2 years from now. With that, we wish you a great Sunday. This is Mission Control, Houston.
All right, I'm gonna mute it so we don't hear all their music. Now they'll play all that stinking copywritten music and I'll get a strike. Don't need that. I was really hoping they was going to pull it on board at the end of this, but I guess they want to stop the video first. Well, they got a conference coming on at 2:30. I don't know. It's like 30 minutes from now. I don't know if I want to carry that or not. Y'all want that conference carried? Y'all tell me. Y'all vote. Y'all want to see the conference? News conference? Y'all tell me. I got plenty to do. Y'all want to see that news conference? Let's see some yes, no's, don't cares, either way, neither way. Hang on, let me stop the share. Halo. Oh, my hat's crooked. There we go. Yeah, take off the overshirt. It was getting hot here, guys. Yeah, this whole thing, H. Ross Perot. Yeah, they try to make him look stupid. But you know what? I really think they sent people there to harass him. And then when he complained about it, they laughed at him and made it say, oh, look, he's a nut job. You know, they probably did that on purpose. That was a psyop to make him look like a nut job. I think he was right. I think they set him up. Then they always play nut music. Yeah, they were trying to stop his campaign because he wasn't part of the system. He was not part of the system. Although, unfortunately, he probably got Clinton elected. That's the downside of it. His run probably got Clinton elected. Didn't Ross Perot get into trouble for blowing up coral reefs? I don't know about that. Yeah, but you know, he claimed that there was people come on his place or agents, and they were running around, you know, going around harassing stuff, and the whole media try to make a joke out of it. Oh, look, he's a nut job. Ha ha, hee ho. Yeah, that's what they tried to do. But yeah, I think they wanted him gone. I think they set him up. I think what he said happened, probably actually happened. And it probably did it just to make him look stupid when he complained about it. That's what I think. Yeah, he was not in the club. And they can't have, if you ain't in the club, they can't have you running for president. You might just take over. Yeah. I think that Trump was a lot more in the club than he was. You know, Trump was buddy with the Clintons and some of these others beforehand, guys. So I think he's a lot closer to the club than H. Ross Perot was. So anybody outside, they're going to do all kind of sops on you. Anything they can do to discredit you. They'll make stuff up. They'll, you know, like if you're not part of their system, they'll plant stuff on you. If you're in the system, if you got stuff, they're going to bury it. Oh, well, I'm way outside the realm of galactic grade, so I don't want to talk politics on this channel. We'll have to do that over on my sister channels. You know, I got the Swivelhead News. I've got a video that I recorded last night and with intention of posting on Green Graves. And I realized I was way out on thin ice for Green Graves. I may be on thin ice for YouTube. I may have to post it on Rumble. It may go up on Rumble. So watch out for Swivelhead's either Rumble or Swivelhead's YouTube. I'm going to post that video shortly. And I got a video that is going to be posted really fast that I recorded. I did another on Green Graves. I'll put it up tonight. Not tonight. I'll put it up this afternoon. And I'll probably go live tonight on Green Graves, most likely later on. I got a lot of other work to do. And we got some few worms to harvest. A construction crew working for H. Ross Perot blew up part of a coral reef without first getting a permit. And they wanted to bring in a yacht. Interesting. Well, you pulled that out real fast. That's good. Good, Ace Lee, for bringing us that news. Yeah, well, you know, a lot of times people, there's that old adage, you know, it's better to beg forgiveness than ask permission. Some people live by that. Yeah, he decided to keep his family alive. Yeah, his family was at risk, apparently. They were threatening him. And that's what they'll do. They'll threaten you. They'll threaten your family. They will stage things, plant stuff on you. All right, again, I'm getting outside the realm of galactic grays. So let's stay off the politics here. We don't want politics on this channel. That's for my other channels. But y'all brought it up. Y'all brought it up. All right, guys. Ho, ho, ho. It's nearly Christmas time. I got to get my lights on, a few other things. So I want to thank everybody for watching. I didn't see anybody say that they wanted to see this show, the next one. I may not care. I got so much work to do. I may not carry the press conference. So y'all have seen this. I think that's enough. We got the real action here. The press conference, just talking heads. It's interesting. A lot of channels will be carrying it, but I'm not sure I want to do that. Got a lot to do here. Of course, you know, hey, one more time, a shout out to Tim Dodd with Everyday Astronaut. He was a regular guy, motorcycle mechanic and photographer who was asked to photo, you know, he did wedding photography, and then he was asked to photograph a do some photography for space flight now of a SpaceX mission. And he made a life decision. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to do that, be a YouTuber. He became a YouTuber. He's got something like 1,350,000 some odd subscribers. He's got a huge channel, almost 100,000 more people than Rex Barrett. He's got a huge channel. He makes a really good living at YouTube now. And he covers SpaceX pretty heavily. It's big into covering SpaceX. So he got on there and he applied to fly on this mission that's been sponsored by the Japanese guy. What's his name? I have to dig it up. Who is a fashion designer who paid for a mission around the moon. They're calling it Dear Moon for Starship to make. And the Japanese guy got to pick his crew, and it was meant to be mostly artists, but he picked, it's a communications and art in a sense. He picked Everyday Astronaut, Tim Dodd. So he never was an astronaut, wasn't even an engineer, but he's going to be an astronaut now. He's very much in the everyday category. You know, motorcycle mechanic, photographer, turned YouTuber. Now the guy, to his great credit, learned enough about rocket engine and aerospace stuff to really bring the news to people and talk about things like Russian engines and so forth. I can bring that kind of stuff from the engineering side, which is to the depths of it, and I'll be doing more of that in the future. But I'm not full-time. I got so many side jobs and a full-time job. It's hard for me to bring content like that. One day, maybe. SpaceX launched another rocket T-minus 2 minutes. All right, Ashley, that's good to know. There's a big jump, though, from their Falcon series to the Starship. The Starship is breaking technology in so many areas simultaneously that it is scary. Normally in project management, you're told never to start a project that's got more than one item that has a low technology readiness level. And even then, that should be like 4 or 5. He's got multiple things that's low TRL. I mean, like TRL 1, maybe even 0, stuff that's never been tried. Some of it's not even been experimented with. He's got multiple things that are new in this project. And some of them are huge challenges. And we saw they had to crash and land a whole bunch of starships just to get one where they could land it right. And I actually came on this channel and said what they needed to do. And they actually did that. They needed to fire their engines higher up, you know, not wait till they straighten up, fire them higher up. And they actually did that when they nailed it. It was the only time they nailed it. And before that, I came on and said, hey, this is what you need to do if you're going to land that thing. Well, they listened to me, probably not. But maybe. If they got that idea for me, that's great. But, you know, any good engineer should have figured that out. But still, guys, they have not yet fired all 33 of the Raptor engines on Starship. And the longest firing, I think, is 20 seconds. So they fired up to 14 is the most they fired. And the one that went 20 seconds wasn't even 14. It was a lower number of engines. So they still got a long way to go just to really get you need a full burn on that engine, at least one, on all those engines, that whole stack before they launch it. You know, so I've always said somebody should fire the SpaceX reliability engineer. Or maybe this guy come see me talking this. He'll be knocking on my door. Somebody should have told Elon Musk that reliability is inversely proportional to parts count. Hey, the more parts you got, the less reliable it is. 33 engines. Wow. Now I'm going to say this. They've done a lot of development on Raptor. It probably is the most reliable single engine out there. And it has to be for them to do what they're doing. For them to achieve the kind of goals he's talking about, a rapid turnaround, usability, so many flights, it's got to be way beyond the other engines in reliability. And it is, but is it enough is the question. They've done amazing things. This is going to be an amazing engine. They're breaking new technology. My hat's off to SpaceX. And the only way I think that they could really pull this stuff off, I should do this in a separate video, is the fact that they're planning to no, it's not that. It's Elon Musk. Elon Musk has the willingness to blow things up and try again and again and again and again and again. Most programs couldn't do that because your funding would go away. But he's funding it for the most, well, kind of sort of him, but he's getting a lot of support from NASA through other contracting routes to fund this too. And remember, NASA's paid him for 2 contracts, for maybe 3, to do this lunar lander. He's getting a lot of money from NASA for that. He's getting money. He got a lot of money from NASA to do the crew cargo, the commercial crew, and the commercial cargo to the International Space Station. That built him up quite a bit. So, and he's getting a lot of lunch. So he's accomplishing major things. And I do hope he pulls it off. I don't know if the Starship that we get in the end is going to look like the one he's starting out with. They may have to do a lot of re-engineering. There's things that just may not work in the end. But who knows, maybe it'll all work out. The sooner they can get that thing flying and flying reliably, the better off the world will be in regards to space development. And I hope the next mission, they pack it full of flat earthers and send them around the moon. That's what they need. A shipload of flat earthers flying around the moon. I just hope they buy enough diapers for them. Lots of diapers. I wouldn't want to be on recovery crew for that mission. Anyway, gotta have a little fun, guys. Gotta have a little fun. So I'm going to say today is the anniversary. Today is the 50th anniversary of the last man landing on the moon. Apollo 17 landed on the moon 50 years ago today. Kind of poetic that our first spacecraft around the moon that can carry crew, that didn't have crew yet, splashed down the same day. So we're finally passing the baton after 50 years. Holy smoke, guys. Yeah, I was a kid last time we went to the moon. Now I'm an old man almost. Wow. But hopefully we're going back. So we'll end this on a good note. And, so here's a big question I'll leave y'all with. SpaceX is scheduled. They're saying they're going to do this Dear Moon mission next year. Artemis 2, that's supposed to fly NASA crew around the moon, is scheduled for May 2024. Now, when I asked who would fly first, whether it's going to be SpaceX or Artemis, everybody came in. Everybody, almost everybody, 100% said it'll be SpaceX. Well, it didn't happen. NASA flew first. Everybody voted in my poll SpaceX. Everybody. NASA flew first. SpaceX ain't even fired all their engines yet. So here's the next question. Who's going to send human beings around the moon first, NASA or SpaceX? I'm betting NASA, because SpaceX has got, I hope SpaceX can do it, I'll be honest. But they got a lot of hurdles to jump, a lot of hurdles. So what do y'all think? They've got to get up there fast, because we're going to have their lander, supposedly, but can that lander land on the moon? My buddy, and he's got a point. My buddy, Bob Zubrin, says the SpaceX lander won't work on the moon. He says they need to scale it down. They need a 3rd scale version. The reason he says it won't work on the moon, he says there's so much thrust going to come out of it, it will blast a crater. And when it lands in that crater, it's going to fall over. It is top heavy. It is long. You got to bring crews down with some kind of hoist up and down from the side. Crews and cargo. Yeah, it's a long way up. He says they're going to have to put down a concrete pad on the moon to land that thing on the moon. Now, this thing can land so much stuff on the moon, weight-wise, yeah, they already have it. But maybe it should be the second lander, not the first lander. Now they're starting the second lander program. Maybe they should make that second lander the first lander, so somebody can get on the moon and put down a concrete pad. Amazon, no, SpaceX or NASA. NASA hadn't landed on Earth. Well, we just splashed down on Earth today. All right, so we need to get up faster time than 2 years. Yes, Jesse, the Chinese are going to be a real threat to us. That's why we really can't diddle-daddly around with this. This is too important to diddle-daddly around with. Well, yeah, the shuttle landed on land. There was the CST-100 that Boeing developed a capsule that actually landed on land. But it wasn't crewed, and they've had tons of problems. Boeing just has tons and tons of problems with that CST-100. I don't know if that thing ever is going to fly. It was in competition against the SpaceX Crew Dragon, and it cost more money and hasn't performed. So we'll have to see how, maybe they'll get that thing worked out. But you know, it's we need more than one. You need more than one way into space, because back in the day when we had a space shuttle Challenger accident, we also had 3 expendable launch vehicles that all blew up. Different designs, different companies, completely. Everything we were launching, but we were totally grounded. We couldn't put anything in space. When you got things like space station, manned platform, where people need to get up and down, you really need an assured way to get up there in case you have to shut something down for a time. Yeah, Ashley, that was crazy. Yeah, that would have tore that spaceship all to pieces the way they came in on the asteroid. That was just nuts. But it was a movie. It's Hollywood. What do you say? It was Hollywood. Picture retro rockets in the middle of starships. Picture retro rockets in the middle of starships. That's the lunar version. Yeah, well, they you know, that thing's got to have needs some big landing legs spread way out there. I mean, here's a starship, guys. This is the upper stage. This is what will land on the moon, basically. Boom, minus all the fins. I don't need fins for lunar landing. Boom. Yeah, you better put some legs on. Those little old guys ain't going to work. Boom. Yeah, I got one right here somewhere. Some legs got broke over. It won't even stand up. And I got an example in my backyard, the DCX rocket. Last time it landed, one of the legs didn't deploy. That thing flew like a helicopter. It was the inspiration for SpaceX and Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos, because that thing flew like a helicopter. They flew it several times. It went in the sky and did all kind of maneuvers and came back down. They flew it over and over and over and over. Used RL-10 engines, and with the last mission, one of the techs didn't follow the procedures right. They didn't hook up the hydraulics or the legs to deploy correctly. So when it landed, they had 4 corners, 4 legs. One of the legs didn't deploy and went, and I got the remnants in my backyard. And I was in the DCX Hall of Fame, not because I got the remnants in my backyard, because I helped make that program happen. I was the guy who lobbied, who led the L5 Society and National Space Society phone tree, and lobbied the Department of Defense to push this project through. Not Congress, but Department of Defense. We lobbied bureaucrats. I mean, that's the only time I've ever done that. And they made a decision to do it. It was called single stage rocket technology back in the day. And the guy who headed it was on the defense side was, gosh, what's his name? Sat the other night here. I draw brain lock a lot these days. Man, I know the guy's name. It's like on the tip of my mind here. It's that tip of my tongue. Oh shoot! Yeah, I'm getting brain lock, guys. We'll come back to it later. Jess Sponnable. Yeah, Jess Sponnable. He was the guy who was and the project manager was Bill Gaubatz. He was at McDonnell Douglas. It was built at Boca Chica plant of what was McDonnell Douglas, got taken over by Boeing later. It's a Boeing plant now, Boca Chica, Arizona, and Huntington Beach. Boca Chica and Huntington Beach. That's where they built the DCX rocket. So I got the avionics bay and the inner tank of that rocket in my backyard. There's other pieces of it. It's at that space museum in Alamogordo, New Mexico, that you've seen Lee go to. You've seen our good friend Ransom go there a lot. I've been there a few times. So that's where the engine section is. But yeah, I got the biggest pieces of that rocket of anybody. They got legs. There you go. You knew. Hey, that's a song. They got legs. ZZ Top, right? They need to land on skids and easier to unload. Yeah, well, that's the Dynetics lunar lander is the one that's going to land like this. Boom. Much easier to load and unload. It's not top heavy. It's not going to turn over. If it did, you're not going to fall far. I'm much more in favor of I think technically the best project proposal was from Dynetics. Not Dianetics, but Dynetics. So it was going to land like this, not boom, like that. We're going to go ding. The Blue Origin concept is kind of like one of these, just shorter. It looks like a big, tall, traditional lunar module. That's what Blue Origin is proposing, not a big departure in any venture. So SpaceX has got a huge departure from what was done before. And Dynetics has got a big departure from what was done before. Technically, I actually think Dynetics has the best concept for getting on the moon. But if you can get SpaceX going, it will carry more payload. But maybe they got to have a concrete pad first. Just saying. Hope they figure that out. But whatever the case is, we need something ready to land real fast. We're talking 2025. China's going to be performing those, so we got to go. Not L. Ron Hubbard's, not Dynetics, L. Ron Hubbard. We're talking Dynetics, a company that started here in Huntsville. Dynetics bought out Orion Propulsion. Orion Propulsion was a spinoff from my High Altitude Research Corporation. Tim Pickens went out and started his own company. And that was a spinoff. High Altitude Research Corporation was a spinoff from my High Altitude Liftoff program, HALO, which got me this. And we had almost went in the space tourism business ourselves, but I went through the math. I figured I was going to have to kill 12 people mathematically. I was going to have to fly 200 missions, and when you looked at 3 people a mission and a reliability rate of 98%, like I was going to have to kill 12 people to get a return on investment. I go, this don't even work mathematically because you get sued to death, and then you got to live with the horror of what happened. Now, we probably would have been more reliable because we had a simpler system, but just the mathematics of it just really gave me cold feet, and I backed away from it. I just couldn't see flying people like that in a system like that. But we had a rocket concept. We called it the Liberator, and you can find it on, I think it's called the Space Review. I'll have to share that with you guys later. But yeah, we had a big rollout. We were part of the X Prize, guys. We had more power thrust-wise and better engines than Elon Musk had, using a derivative of the engine I have right here beside me. Not Elon Musk. I meant not Elon Musk. I meant Scale Composite, Burt Rutan. This is the daddy of the engine Burt Rutan used in Spaceship One. That is the daddy of it right there. That was on my engine, just like this was on my Cat's Prize rocket. All right, guys. Elon is doing shaking and baking. Hey, let's have some bacon. Let's be making some bacon. All right, guys. Elon. All right, we've gone long enough. We've gone long enough. 24 watching. All right. We've been going now for 3 hours. That's too long. I got to go, guys. I got work to do. I got a lot of work to do. So that I'm going to say thank y'all for watching. And oh yeah, stay tuned to Green Greg's. I'm going to be putting a video up there, probably 3 or 4, and I'll be putting one on one of the Swivelhead News channels. I need to review it, make sure if I can see if I really think I can get away putting it up on YouTube. Kind of thinking that I got a little bit, especially the one statement I made, I got a little bit far out on the thin ice for YouTube. I mean, I've got to stay within the guidelines of YouTube. And even there's unwritten guidelines you got to stay within too, or you get a lot of trouble. There's something else, Greg. All I have under my desk is shoes. Shoes. There we go. Me too. All right. Had a little fun here. Got to have a little fun, right? In fact, that's the ones I need to put on. So the clunkers I got on my feet right now. All righty, guys, we're real. We're real, but raw. Raw, but real. That's what you get with my channels. I don't have time for a lot of editing and all these bells and whistles a lot of people do. Occasionally, I'll put together a program that I edit. I did one not too long ago, that UFO show. I really edited the heck out of that and had a lot of video. That was really entertaining. A lot of people liked it. So I got the capability to do it. I can do it. But the time is a killer, guys. I mean, I got a lot of content I could post if I just get the time to put it together. I got a lot of things I need to talk about, a lot of stories I want to share, things I want to do. It's time, guys. Time's a killer for me. Time is a killer. So y'all hang in here, and thank y'all for watching. Maybe in time I too can have a big channel here, kind of like Everyday Astronaut. Why can't my channel be as big as him? I got the inside scoop. I'm an engineer. I've been working this stuff for decades. There is no other YouTuber in the space YouTube realm who's got the experience I have, and not a single one of them has led their own rocket programs. I've done all that. So I'm way ahead of those guys in experience. I mean, light years ahead of them. but maybe not in YouTubing experience. I certainly don't have 1 million subscribers or even 100,000 on any of my channels, but maybe we can get it up there. Maybe we can get it up there. So y'all help me, guys. Y'all spread my videos. Y'all share them. Give me some thumbs up. Help me with the algorithm has no rhythms, and let's see if we can get these channels up there. Because if we do, then I can bring you better content. If I can go full time doing this, I could bring you far better content, have more time for editing, bring you more stories, and maybe even go to some of these events myself, some of the launches, some of the activities, and bring you live stuff like some of the other channels like to do. I'm not where I can do that right now because I do have a day job. I got some other ventures too. Anyway, with all that, I'm gonna say thank y'all for watching very much. Thank you, mods, for all you do, and I just thank you all for your support. You're a great crowd, and